Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing something very, very exciting for the channel with Ethan from 115 Games. Games?
Gaming.
Yes, gaming. That does not make me look good with some guy off a YouTube channel. Yeah, so we are going to be doing a tier list for the 6 siege attacking and defending operators, and this time it is going to be attacking. But before all that, Ethan, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh yeah. So how's it going, guys? My name's Ethan. As already said, I run 115 Gaming, and technically we're a channel that covers all kinds of board games. But if you go look, 90% of our videos are specifically on this board game, which is Six Siege. And that just kind of happened by happenstance. It was a game we fell in love with when they sent out the prototype on TTS for the Kickstarter. And my friend who I do a lot of the videos or games with, Jack, we both just really love that game, and we ended up just started making videos for that game. That's how we started the channel, and it's just kind of become our main game. And now, obviously, ever since the game actually shipped, we've been covering it even more recently. So yeah, we've been playing it pretty much for the last 3 years straight.
Yeah, which is actually has been super helpful whenever I got my copy, because I was like, man, because Mythic Games is not known for their rule books, so I'm like, this is gonna be a pain. And then yeah, your video is actually the one I watched, and I'm like, cool. I am even more excited. So
makes me glad to hear. I need to make one with the actual physical copy of the game, because I think a lot of people might not watch the one with TTS.
Yeah,
so that might be coming.
Awesome. Well, so this is a ranking list that we're going to be going over. The original plan was to go from 30 to 1, but we're going to just do a tier list. And as with all ranking lists, this is subjective, purely off of our own personal opinion. And we're going to just kind of talk about likes, dislikes of the different operators, see if we can come to a consensus on where these operators should be. Taking all things into consideration. Now, the caveat to this is, because this is not like a 1v1 fighting thing, every operator is good. Let's just get that out of the way. Every operator is good or useful. Maybe not good. Like, yeah. I don't think every operator, like, we're not gonna be like, okay, Ash, S tier, Ace, S tier.
Yeah. They all have their uses in certain maps, modes, team comps.
Yes.
They're all very well balanced with each other, which makes making a list like this kind of difficult.
It does make it difficult, because we can't sit here and take every single operator and then be like, okay, well, they're A on bank. They're a D on border. Like, we can't just take, otherwise this is gonna be a 9-hour video and no one would watch it.
Or you could just split it into 8 different videos,
right.
16 each side. But
I mean, what we could do instead is we make a 30-minute video of each operator and talk about their usefulness there. But that's a lot more work than I think either of us want to do. Maybe you, because your channel is Six Siege, the channel.
Yeah, maybe we can do that at some point.
But so it's a generalization of kind of like, generally this is what we feel over these operators. But we've, like, Ethan has played the game a shit ton. I've been playing it a lot more lately. So I have my attacking operators ranked from 30 to 1, and even at 30, like, still useful, but like, I'll explain why, and then we can kind of talk about, oh, well, it's because it's gonna be hard. It's like, okay, well, this one's at 30, but then it's gonna be, well, if we can't be like, well, if you pair them with this operator and this operator and this operator, then they all of a sudden jump way up.
Yeah.
So we'll make it work.
I'm approaching it from, like I said this before we started, I'm approaching it from the angle of my own personal playstyle enjoyment, as opposed to me making a statement on the operator's, like, power level.
Exactly.
So for me, if an operator ranks low, it's not because I think it's bad. It's usually because it doesn't fit my playstyle and I don't feel good with it. So I wouldn't pick it as much. Like, a good example is Pulse. I know we're getting ahead into defenders, but just as an example, Pulse is in my opinion, a really great operator, but I'm not really good at using him. So he would go lower, because I don't pick him as much, just because I'm not as good with him, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it.
Yep, that's exactly how I'm doing it too, because I've done a ranking on, like, if you've ever played War Chest.
Mhm.
War Chest is very, very similar to this, where it's like, here's my number 16. However, it's really good if you have it with this, other unit. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's just fun. Six Siege, you know, taking the Mythic Games shit out of the equation. It's a fantastic board game. Like, so I want to talk about more about it, and uh Ethan does a lot of content, so got a
Mhm.
collab going.
I'm
Okay,
excited.
I am too. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
So I have all the pictures for them, so hopefully they open up. So starting at my number 30, where I originally had them, is the character that, as I was watching the professionals play, was one that kept getting banned or one that kept getting picked. And I was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Do you mean professionals in the video game or the board game?
In the video game.
In the
There's no
video game. Okay.
pro board game players, come on.
Uh,
Um that would
yet.
be, we don't have the data yet on
Yeah.
who's getting banned the most, but definitely from the video game, it blew my mind. I was like, I bet you they know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
But there's a reason why I have her at number 30, and that is Ying.
Interesting.
So here is, again, the ability is good. From
Hmm.
my personal standpoint, and this is just from my play style, I do not like any abilities that can also hurt me.
I see.
Um, and that's what, and like, it kind of is like, okay, here's number 30, kind of just by default, you have to have someone there. But kind of like
Hmm.
going at 29, it's like, well, oh, I like this operator. So with Ying's ability, all operators in the room where you deploy her device get stunned, except for her.
Hmm.
I don't like that. I don't like that there's a chance. Now, granted, if I'm putting my own operators in the room, then and then I use her ability, that's my own
Hmm.
fault, especially the board game.
Yeah.
'Cause it's
Since you have
very
more control.
it's very mechanical. Like
Hmm.
if it was team based and then I didn't have any control over where anyone was going and I use the ability, it's like, why are you in there?
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like, oh, I moved all my pieces here. Time to grenade them. It's like, why would I do that? So that is generally why I have her at 30.
Hmm. So that's interesting. She is one of my favorites in the board game. I think probably the reason I would rank her higher than you is because, like you were talking about in the board game specifically, you have more control over how you use her, and so
Hmm.
probably there's not really going to be many instances where you would use her ability and your own operators are in the room.
Hmm.
Because and even if you were about to move them into the room, you would probably be using her first before you moved anyone else in there, typically.
Yes.
So I totally understand that risk, but she's got a pretty solid gun at close and medium range. Her
Hmm.
ability's good. You can do it from behind the safety of a barricade, which is obviously really nice. So I think she's really good, but I guess I never thought about that before, about the risk of hurting your own operators.
Yeah, because getting stunned and the brilliancy of this game is, man, there's so many games that come out that have just like a million different condition tokens, and this is
Hmm.
your other, I'm drawing the blank, you're either stunned or
Located.
pinged,
Yeah,
located, and that's it. So
yep,
it's like, and being stunned sucks.
it does. Oh, it's
Um,
awful.
so, but yes, if you can meticulously use this really well, where it's like, okay, boom, three operators on the defending side is stunned, you can make a
Mhm.
really good push. Uh, but the other reason why, because I was thinking about that more, it's like, well, yeah, more operators or all operators, that kind of sucks if I misplay, um, or I'm forced into a position, then it's like, okay, well, then I'm never using the ability. Or
Mhm.
if I do use it, you only have two.
Yeah.
So you kind of only get two uses out of it.
That's true. It's kind of interesting. I mean, we shouldn't spend too long on the first one, but
I know.
this is just how in depth this game goes. Is that if you're in a situation like that, probably you might use it just a regular flashbang grenade in that case to
That's true.
target who you want to stun. So I mean, but also if you're bringing Ying, you might not bring many flash grenades with you.
That's
So
true.
that's an
So
interesting thing you bring up there.
So let's see. Here she is, I think.
Mhm.
So from S, and we were gonna have an F category, but then that just actually to us made it seem like if we put anyone in the F category, they'd be shit.
Yeah.
Like if it's like,
Uh,
okay, well, that's not the case, even with Ying at the bottom for me.
mhm.
So I still wouldn't put her at D.
Yeah,
I'd probably put her at C.
that's fair. I think for me, I would put her in A. I think I use her a little bit more than you.
Okay. So
But I
here's what we
think
can do
from your point of
because
view, what you're saying, I say C makes sense.
okay. So here's what we'll do because we can never if I mean if we did me at C and then you went to A, then
Yeah.
we would put a B. So what we'll do is since I'm starting off with my list of attackers and you
Mhm.
actually like defending more, we'll default to your pick for
Okay.
defenders. Does that?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
that's cool. And I'll make my own shadow list here, and you can throw up the screenshot at the end so we can compare our two
Okay.
rankings if that sounds fun to
Okay.
you.
Cool. Well, that was probably like 5 minutes on one operator. We got 30 of them to go. Buckle up. Okay, so number 29 um, was another character that was constantly being used in the video game.
Mm.
That blew my mind too. I'm like, oh my God, do I just suck with these characters? My number 29 is Hibana.
Mm.
Um, and this one kind of just defaulted down to one, she actually only has 4 health, which is not in a game like this. You're dying almost immediately. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, they're stunned, and they killed me somehow still.
Mhm.
Um, and I understand Hibana is a very hard breacher, being able to destroy on a red action, but I felt it was pretty limiting. Like you had two
Yep.
ways to hard breach, and that's it. Like, so it kind of came down to, well, there are other operators that hard breach.
Mhm.
Um, so like
So this is true.
29.
We could talk for probably a whole 40-minute video on just the different hard breachers and their
That's true.
differences.
Do you
Um,
actually you can grab your game. Can you get the little sheet like the poster they
I
made for all the
I
No,
think
I'm
there is
kidding.
somewhere here. But so here's the draw to Hibana as a hard breacher over the others. And to be honest, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with your low ranking because she's probably a hard breacher that I pick a lot less than the others. I think I maybe have only played her once, to be honest.
Hmm.
And it's not because she's bad. So the three different hard breachers, you've got Thermite, Hibana, Ace, and then Maverick. So you've really got four.
Hmm.
And what she allows you to do is allows you to hard breach from range.
Yeah.
So both Maverick and Thermite have to be adjacent, and she can breach something 6 spaces away. And also with throwables, you can throw those through smoke overlays. So it could
Hmm.
even be something that a normal hard breacher wouldn't have line of sight to. She could hit it. But where she's limited, like you said, is she has 4 health and she only has 2 destroy actions. And unlike Thermite, she can only target one single space. So there's some pros and
Right.
cons. There's pros and cons to all of them. And as for my play style, I think I agree with you here that I would probably pick her less than the
Hmm.
others.
Yeah.
I've seen other people use her really well. That's the thing.
Yeah, and clearly, like, if we're talking about pros, like, because the thing about the video game and to the board game is they're not necessarily one to one.
Yeah.
There's actually a character we'll talk about later that I actually think out of all the operators that they designed, they actually kind of dicked one of them over. Um,
Oh, interesting.
I from my if I remember correctly from playing the video, I haven't played the video game in years, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's still the case here, and we'll get to them. But uh, yeah, I'm actually probably gonna do an audible here because I think I'm gonna switch Hibana and Ying.
Interesting.
I think I'm gonna put Hibana actually at 30. So I'd put Hibana at D,
Yeah.
um, just for the sheer fact that it's like you can throw them and it is
Mhm.
red and that is a good counter if because again it's not like you're playing the game and you're like, oh, I had no idea who you brought. I can clearly
Mhm.
see you brought Castle and all these defenders, so I need a hard breacher. But yeah,
Yeah.
you got two of those, which might be enough.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, again, it's weird. I think she's one of those where she's situational. There are
mhm,
obviously times where you're like, man, I wish I had Hibana. Like if you're trying to breach something, but it's deeper in the map and you can't get up to it,
mhm.
that's where you'd want her.
Yeah,
So it's interesting. Again, I don't think her bad. Her gun, especially at middle and long range, is really good.
yeah,
And I don't know if you piece this together on your plays, but the operators who have 4 health, they always have the 5 sprint. So they have less health, but they can
yeah,
sprint a lot faster. So she's
yes,
very aggressive. so she can sneak around
Hmm.
and really fast, which is also very useful, unlike some of
Yeah,
the
I
others.
believe I did make that. I wasn't sure. Like, I didn't look through all of them and was like, oh, if they have low health, do they have the max
Yeah.
run? I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Like,
it's actually very consistent. There's three, we Jack and I call them weight classes. There's light, medium, and heavy. Hibana's a lightweight, so she has 4 health, but she has 5 sprint. The regular ones have 5 health and 2 sprint, and then the heavies have 6 health and no sprint. So, which is a pretty good
okay,
way to classify, for
which
as we
makes
go into the
sense.
ranking. That's probably I'll probably refer to something as
Yeah.
light, medium, or heavy.
And to be fair, I should have made this a caveat as well. I didn't necessarily take their weapons
Hmm.
and this. I did look at it when I couldn't decide which ability I liked more.
Yep.
I was like, okay, well maybe their gun or their innate destroy ability or health. That was like my tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But
I'll try and highlight those if we don't bring them up because those can be very, very good
perfect.
as well.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm doing this with you because I'm like, he's played this way more than I have. He's gonna probably bring those up.
Played it
Okay.
maybe a little too much.
Like I've called into work. Like I'm playing by myself at this point. My friends don't even like me. All right. So number 28. Let's see. There they are. Number 28. Let's just go ahead. I don't have a good segue. Is Gridlock,
Ooh.
which is another character that I think was being utilized.
Hmm.
Right before while I was making this ranking list, I was telling Ethan that I was watching like the 2024 international finals
Hmm.
tournament, and I was like, man, what do pros look like playing the video game? Uh, Turns out really good. Like the way they were peaking, it was like a pixel, and I'm like, if they get a kill off that, like I hate this game.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, Gridlock with track stingers in a targeted space, opposing operates entry space containing or adjacent to a stinger sustain a damage and must end their activation immediately. Again, it comes down to people have to go somewhere.
Yep.
Um, and with me putting them at 28 was it was more of just like, well, you're gonna have to play some in certain situations. It has to be adjacent to it, and this is very control.
Hmm.
There are quite a few other people who also do something similar to this.
Yep.
So, um, there we go. There we go. But luckily, it's not necessarily 28. It's S, A, B, C, or D.
Yeah. I will push back a little bit. I think my Gridlock is one of my favorites
Okay.
personally. Both me and Jack, who I play with. Um, she's just very useful. It's one of those scenarios where I think people would look at her ability and be like, because we were talking about this before we started about overwatching entry spaces. Like, I don't understand. You throw this down, nobody's going to willingly walk into the space and lose their turn, and that's the point. Like, it's a
Hmm.
map control thing,
Yeah.
and the we can talk about a little bit about the difference between the defense and the attackers. The defense start out with a bunch of things that help control the map to benefit them, and Gridlock
Hmm.
almost has a kind of defense gadget almost. She has like a throwable version of a bandit wire,
Yeah.
kind of, and it's very useful for protecting your flanks or protecting against entryway spaces behind you, things like that. You can see some of the games, some of the recent games we used. Jack has used Gridlock really well, and just closing off areas. And if it's a scenario where you can't destroy it as a defense, he might just block off whole areas of the map, and now the
Yeah.
attack can just they can put more effort into watching a different angle, and it can be really annoying. Is kind of what
Hmm.
I'm getting at. I think she's really good. I would probably put her in A tier myself.
An A.
Yeah, especially because if you look at her gun, close and medium range especially is really good, and she has
Hmm.
Orange Destroy, which
Yeah.
is
An
pretty
innate
solid.
orange destroy 6 health is also really good. Not
Yeah.
necessarily needing to run, just a slow breacher. Like again, I don't think this
Mhm.
is bad. There are a lot of characters because the thing that is good is if they do make the decision to go into that spot and end their activation, they also suffer the damage,
Yeah.
which bypasses having to roll.
Hmm.
There are other characters that also do kind of dot damage,
Yeah.
almost just as a passive. So
Hmm.
for my personal play style, it's like, okay, well, I don't have to rely on dice. I can just do innate damage, which means I don't need to roll that well to kill you.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if you've set up a scenario where and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if she has a thing down and you use Nomad, which allows you to move an enemy operator to another space, you could. She's Gridlock is one of those operators that would help elevate Nomad.
yeah,
That allow like you could do some tricky things with
yeah.
her.
Again, I very much want to reiterate because the last time I did the tier list was for TI,
Yeah,
and that video did really well in terms of views, but a lot of people commenting were like, "You didn't take this into consideration." I'm like,
yeah.
dude, I don't have the
There's
time to play this like a pro.
there's a
Um,
million things to take into consideration.
yes. So, uh, again, like whenever I'm saying 28 on my ranking, that doesn't mean like, oh, well, tw 30 through 20 I think are trash. I never want to
Yeah.
play them. Um, this is from personal play style, that I'm still getting used to the fact that in like the video game, there's so much things that are going on that using
Hmm.
their ability, you're probably going to get something off of this.
Yeah.
Me putting down that throwable will probably have someone run into it. The board game doesn't necessarily have that. It's I just don't want you going this way.
Yep.
So that's kind of why she fell. So because again, I like her better than Ying.
Hmm.
So where is she? Gridlock is right here. Oh God. I'm
Already
gonna put
having a
her
hard
at B.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I see. I feel like that with the ability, there's just other people. There's other people that kind of that I personally prefer
Yeah.
for
She
that.
fits a little bit more with my play style, I think, which is why I'd rank her higher. I think she's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So just take it. If you're disagreeing with me, and you're like, no, Ethan's got it. That's A. Then perfect. That's why it's not just me.
I also rank her high because she's been used well against me.
Oh, you
So
should
I
rank her
find
lower
her
then.
to when she's played well and you're playing against her, she's so infuriating. So that's why I'm comfortable
Hmm.
rating her a little higher.
Yeah. Uh, Okay. And actually, with your rankings or with your favorites, because you said you used to play the video game a lot, how
Mhm.
much does that sway? Like, is your main in the video game? Are you like, they're my main in the board game? Or are you like,
That's It's actually funny because there was a while where I went through a Ying and Gridlock phase specifically in the video game before I stopped playing,
oh,
which,
that's
which is
funny.
funny. Yeah, I really enjoyed her in the video game. Back, I don't know if she's different now because they changed the meta so much. So
They do, yeah.
this is back in 2020. So I don't know, but yeah, I
Hmm.
really enjoyed her in the video game because she's almost a defensive attacker. She is used for when you like get into the site. Once you get a foothold, she can help now defend, right? Because
Hmm.
that's what you want to do is attack. Once you get into the bomb room, right, or the hostage room, you now want to keep the defense from rotating in, and she's really good at that. So,
Right. All right. Next up that I have at number 27, which is someone that you actually mentioned when we were talking about Hibana, and that is Thermite.
mhm.
Um, so Thermite for me is just kind of like a little bit better, like in terms of a hard breacher. Yeah, it's a destroy red action in the target space and spaces adjacent to it, and partitions don't block that. Yeah, it's still two uses um of it, and it's not that much higher than Hibana. In fact, actually having
Mhm.
these around, we can actually look at them.
You can actually see the difference.
Yeah. Um, and again, kind of like, well, why is he so much higher than her when they kind of have the same ability? Granted, his is deployable and hers is
Hmm.
throwable. Um, it was like, okay, he has a better innate destroy. He has one more health, which in this game actually matters. Like
Yep.
you see that happen in the video game as well, where it's like, one health? Are you kidding me? It's like, yep, you didn't quite hit my brain with that headshot. Still alive. Um, and he's less restricted. Like this is a destroy action target space. This hits all adjacent spaces to it. So there was a
Hmm.
little bit more of an area of effect. Um, but a little bit lower, just again, because yeah, a red destroy action is going to work on everything you're trying to destroy,
Yep.
um, which is good, but you still have only two uses of it.
Yep. I This might be a I don't know where you'll put him on your tier list. But if you rank him so low, I'm guessing it'll probably be, the B through D tiers somewhere.
Hmm.
Which might be our first major disagreement. I'll easily put Thermite in the S tier. Um, and I think the reason is I think he's the most simple of the hard breachers. And I think it's kind of a blessing and a curse, but usually it's a blessing more often than not. You don't want to overlook his ability. He does a 3x3 AoE destruction rating, and it goes through heavy walls, which
Mm.
is massive. With one charge, he only gets 2 charges, but with one charge, you could destroy up to 9 things if people played their gadgets poorly, right?
Yeah, it's all
So
concentrated in one room.
exactly. The drawback is his This is another difference between him and Hibana. His gadget is electronic, so things like mute's jammers could block his charge. But because of the way, this is one of those weird board game video game differences. Because of the way the board game works, you can always target a square outside of a room that's blocking electronics, and it'll blow things up through the wall because
Hmm.
that's how his thing works.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Which I mean,
often, more often than not, as attack, just blowing up a bunch of gadgets that the defender has set down in one charge is an incredible use of action economy. For one charge, I could destroy 3 to 4 of the things you put down. I mean, I think that's a good deal right there.
yeah, and I mean you're definitely not wrong. I think with his like my only counter to that is there are again other operators that do that just innately as their ability where what you're
Mm.
talking about him would be situational on people having to have placed them like that, like literally
Yeah.
adjacent to one another. Whereas
Yeah.
other operators, it's just like, hey, in this room,
Yep.
destroy all these
That's
types of
true.
things.
Like Thatcher, for instance, is a
Yep,
good thing you're talking
Thatcher, I
about.
think Callie, Fuze,
Hmm.
all these other operators do that. Now, not at a red, but
Yeah,
gadgets don't require red.
that's true.
Um,
There
so,
are the That's interesting though is, we this is another thing is you get on some of the smaller maps like Bank or Border that are the small square ones.
mhm.
It gets part of what you're talking about. What you said is correct. As you get better as a defense, you need to spread out your gadgets so that people can't use things like Thermite or a frag grenade to destroy multiple things.
Yeah.
Problem is in some of these smaller maps, it's pretty impossible to not have to end up starting to group things together. That's
Yeah,
why Thermite can be useful.
yeah. And I will say, like, I couldn't take maps into consideration. Like,
Yeah,
otherwise
I
we'd
know.
never have a
Yeah,
list.
I know. I know.
It was more of just generally, this is kind of like whenever you take a personality test and you're like, well, it's like, do you like going outside? Well,
Mhm.
kind of. Like it's like, but it depends.
Yeah.
It's like generally, I when I was looking through all the abilities, I was like, well, this is kind of like this one, and this is kind
Mhm.
of like this one. This one seems less restrictive to me, so that's why it's going higher.
Yeah.
Um, but again, Thermite's great. Like
Yeah, he
Thermite's really
is.
good. If you when you're picking you pick the map, you pick who's banned, and then you go and you're drafting, and then you're like, okay, they have a lot of really high tech gadgets. Boom,
Mhm.
I am gonna pick Thermite to counter all that. And then you get to see the defensive map, and you're like, awesome. I'm gonna
It's
save
something to
these for
keep in
these.
mind is even just not gadgets, walls, barricades, and doors. You can just blow up a bunch in one go, which could just clear paths the rest of your team. The reason I would put him in S tier is because I think when you look at his stats, his gun is very consistent. He has an orange destroy. He's even got sprint. The reason I justify him by putting him in S tier by saying would he fit? He's one of those operators that I think could just fit pretty much onto any map and any team comp and be generally pretty good, right?
Yeah,
So he's not you can't go wrong with him. Whereas somebody like Nomad would be a situational pick. Thermite, you could be pretty reasonable. Oh, I need a fifth pick. Thermite's he's good. He's just always good.
yeah,
That's kind of
yeah.
where my headspace is at.
Okay, okay. Well, we'll remember that you said S tier, and we'll pop him. Where is he? Where is he? Oh my God, where is he? He should.
Oh, he's up there at the top, near the right
Oh, there
side,
he
right
is.
there.
And we'll
Yeah.
pop him right here. No, I'm
Oh, of
kidding.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
With
Naturally.
the other with the other heart breacher.
Yeah.
No, I'll put him at B.
I think it's good.
That's but in in Ethan's heart, he's right here.
Yeah.
Just pretend he's right there.
Mhm.
All right. So now again, I kind of bundled up all these characters who kind of do a similar thing. Number 26, we have Ash.
Mm.
Uh, so which is really funny because it's like, okay, Ash, line of sight, ignoring maximum one barricade, perform a distraction at target space in the space orthogonally adjacent to it. Um, Ash is kind of just here because I remember running her in the video game. and she's again just an easy one to use.
Yep.
Um, I kind of, and this is just kind of different play styles. I think you'll get an idea of my kind of play style when we get into like the top 10.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Like the ones
actually
you favor.
the ones just the weird shit that I like to go for, different types of strategy. Which could change
Mhm.
if I continue to play this.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so Ash again. Well, what's also interesting is we can make these comparisons. If we're talking about like weapons and stuff, or was it we have Hibana, um, and we'll do Thermite. So it's also interesting about Ash is one, she has a better innate destroy, but
Mhm.
if we
No
look
cover
at their
die.
weapons, they do not get she does not get hindered by cover.
Yep.
Like Hibana loses dice, and why did I have Thatcher? Whoops, I meant to click. There we go. Thermite. Now it not as bad, but
Mhm.
innate just I think I would take this a little bit overall, just the consistency of dice
Yep.
versus having to worry about.
Well, yeah, and the drawback with her is, obviously her long range is not great, but she's a sprinter, right? She has 5 sprint, so probably realistically, you're always probably going to be within ranges 1 through 6. So you're always going to have her optimal dice. I think you'd have to
Yeah.
really misplay her to be shooting Ash at 7+ range. You know, um, she's got that sprint. She should be able to position to usually get her medium range gun. And like you said, she has no cover dice. And kind of a rule of thumb, if somebody's rolling 4 dice, no cover die. I mean, just 4 dice is just a good roll, even with heavy
Mm-hmm.
cover.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. If I'm remembering correctly, um, reds have no misses, orange has
yep,
one, and
yes,
yellow has two or three.
yes. Two, I think.
Two. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, so generally you're going to be getting hit, and in a game like this, there's basically no rerolls.
yep.
Um, you're just kind of at the whim of what the dice say. So, uh, I just kind of like her overall utility. She's very like right there, like just
Yeah.
overall like a solid pick.
She's a
Uh,
solid basic character.
yeah, yeah, nothing too flashy, but if you're looking at dice, which you should, I mean that it
Mhm.
is important. Like it, sometimes you may never even use these uh abilities, or you might just use one.
Yeah.
Um,
The dice aren't important until they are, and that's
exactly.
when you start thinking about them more.
So, I mean, I'm again kind of just putting it like she's right. I think she's right there with Thermite, right at B
Yeah.
tier. Like,
I think for myself, I'd agree with you. I think I would put her in B tier, but I think she's a great character. I can never seem to find when I play her like the best times to use her gadget. So I
yeah.
would put her in B tier. Her gun is great. She's a sprinter, so she's really aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's good for those reasons. I think her gadget is great. I think I struggle sometimes to use her the best, but I've seen other people use her where she can get those sneaky destroy actions from behind the safety of a barricade. Oh, and then you get really annoyed at her when somebody does something with her like
Yeah,
that.
well, it's funny that you mentioned that because it's kind of like whenever you get events in other board games where it's like we gotta wait for the perfect time to use this, and then there's never the perfect time. It's just like just use
Exactly.
it, just do it. um, and then you'll be happy that you at least got to use the ability.
Yeah.
Um, so you said you'd put her at D.
I said B. No,
Oh, you
B.
B.
Right
Okay.
in the middle. She's
Okay.
good. She's a solid pick, even just to get extra destruction. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I agree right on
Yeah.
the money with you. She's
Because I'm
just
trying to
solid.
think of like there's not many, at least from my recollection, there's not many instances where you need red destruction.
Hmm.
Like I know there obviously are, otherwise it
Yeah.
wouldn't be in the game. But generally a orange will be good.
Oh yeah. No, orange is good, and she has a basic orange destruction on her as well.
Exactly.
So she's. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
she's really good.
Perfect B. Okay, now let's move on to, and this is another one. I think this is more of just I suck. And this is probably one of the more complicated of the hard breachers. And I if based off kind of my of us discussing, I bet you this would be another S tier for you.
Mhm.
Ace.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this is more of like I clearly see the usefulness of it. I think I'm just really bad at making them because this is also a character that was constantly being played in the video game on the perfect tournament. And I was like,
Mhm.
why? Um, so funny enough, I have like all the hard breachers like right next to each other. It's like, you know what? I don't even fucking need you guys. I know we're attacking and we have that's how we even get into the building, but come on, I don't
Mhm.
need to get in. I'll
It
just
sounds like the defense players you're playing against just aren't setting up good enough defenses, clearly, if you don't need hard breaching.
well, see, because how often are you actually playing the physical game?
Ever since I got it, I actually haven't played digitally since I got the physical game.
Okay, because
So,
I've only played it
mhm.
physically, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of people who like these kinds of games, so I play with like one person. So I've been
Yeah.
playing against one person the entire time. So, uh, it's just it's different types of play styles.
It's funny that you say that because something I've realized is the person you're playing against can influence your team comp as much as the maps
Well,
and the modes and
it,
everything.
it also just determines on kind of if you like the game or not. I
It's
played
true.
War Chest and didn't like it, and then played it against another person with a different like group, like different unit setting, and love the game now.
Yeah.
So it's like you could, if you're playing, if someone were to kind of give you, well, the game has like a tutorial. Hey, pick these operators as your opening
Yeah.
thing, and if you don't like the way that they play, you might not like the game.
It's true.
You're like,
Yeah.
this is not my play style.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ace has Selma charges, throwable. It's similar to a bunch of the other ones we've seen, red
Yep.
destroy action. But then the bottom one is what makes it very interesting. Where you place a rubble standee in the targeted entryway space, and rubble is now an obstacle, and the space covered by rubble is no longer an entryway space. So I'm gonna let you run with that bottom one because I still have yet to see
hmm
why that matters.
So it is, you're right, it is very interesting. Firstly, his basic red destroy is the same as Hibana. The only difference is his is electronic. So something like Mute Jammers could stop you from throwing this into a room. So that's one thing to consider.
Mm,
But the rubble on entryway spaces are interesting. So playing the entryway space game correctly is, I think, almost maybe like half 50% of the strategy in a given game is being able knowing how to pull your characters upstairs and then downstairs at the right times.
hmm
And his gadget is one of those double-edged swords, in my opinion, because if you block off an entryway space, you're not allowing the defenders to flank around you by going downstairs and shooting you from behind. That's a good thing. But also you have now closed that area off for you to maybe retreat back up if you need it, or to bring
hmm
somebody else back down with you. So we can talk about this on the defensive side. On the defense, you can place red hatches on the entryway spaces to block the attacker from going down those stairwells, unless they obviously blow it up. But the thing, just like with this is the same kind of thing with the defense. With the defense, when you put a hatch on something, you're also closing that off for you to blow that up because the defense
Right.
has no red destroy. So this is one of those double-edged swords like the defense has with the reinforced hatches. You can block a flanking option for your opponent, but you're also blocking it for yourself. And so it can be very tricky. You could hurt yourself as just as much with this as you hurt the defense, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Gotcha. So it's interesting if I was looking at the character correctly in the video game, his charge is like a throwable that
Yep.
blows up a spot then falls down
Yeah.
and
And it
then it
makes like a
blows
little hole.
yeah, to walk through. And I guess a counter for that in the video game is you destroy it before it makes that second breach, so it's not enough.
Yep.
So they didn't really quite make that one to one in this one, which I guess makes sense because
Yeah.
how would
This
you,
rebel thing is totally new to the board game. It's not, he doesn't do this kind of thing. He does kind of do
yeah.
this kind of thing in a video game.
Which I guess makes sense because otherwise that'd be weird if you had to have hit points on entryway, like just kind of make it
Yeah.
a lot more simple. Um,
And he only has yellow
so
destroy, which I don't love.
yeah,
You know, it makes Thermite a little more reliable in that sense. I think I can't remember if Hibana had. I think she had Yellow Destroy as well. So they're similar in that
let's
way.
see.
Let me
Hibana does have a
pull that
yellow
up.
destroy.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but she
and
has
also
5 sprint.
yeah, he has
He has
five
one of those too.
health. I
Five
kind of
health.
value health in this game. a little bit more
Yeah.
because in the video game, health doesn't matter. Like you just get
Yeah,
you can get headshots in the
that's
video
true.
game. Here you can't. So I
He,
I like the second ability. I think is very interesting.
it's very interesting, but it's tricky. That's the thing.
Yeah. So I think he's a little bit higher for me.
Hmm.
Um, for
The
just the
ability.
extraness of it, like it's
Yeah.
not if it was like summer charges and it was just the top ability, it's like, well, that's like everyone else.
Yeah, I would put him over Hibana because he has that extra ability in case you want it.
Hmm.
But then the reason I would still rank him lower on my list, I'd put him with Ashe on B tier. I could lower
That's
him if I
that's where I
wanted
was
to.
actually going to put him too. Is
Yeah,
still
because he can harm you as much as your opponent if you don't
hmm
play it well, and that's a weird
like
line to walk.
here we go. There we go. If I
Yeah,
rank these in my order,
in your order.
so yeah, again, kind of put all these kind of breachers in B tier.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, good. Then I don't feel as bad because it's like I keep seeing him being
It's
used.
interesting though. I will say because you're talking about the video game, Ace is another one that I play all the time in the video game whenever I play. So
Yeah, I
it's
think it's
interesting
again
that I don't
because
use him as much.
he just has that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I was seeing him being used a lot, and I'm like,
Yeah, he's good.
what am I missing on him? Okay, number 24, Buck.
Oh,
Oh, Buck.
you're
Uh,
piercing my soul with this one.
well, here's the thing: is this this ability is really good, and apparently this character has a lot of ambiguity on his ability
A little
that
bit.
needed. It's funny enough, some guy was commenting and he was kind of getting a little bit more aggressive on the designer of the game on my discussion where he was I'm like, okay, man, like yeah, the rules don't answer it. That's fine.
Hmm.
No, the fucking designer needs to be more clear. And I'm like, hey man, okay, fine. There's gonna be an FAQ or there doesn't need to be an errata.
Yeah.
Because apparently, yeah, his ability has a lot of just kind of like questions that don't necessarily have answers unless you find the designer saying something about it.
Yeah.
Um,
He, I'll let you explain it and I'll tell
oh,
you
I
what
was
I
yeah.
think about it.
So line of sight vertical, you place a hold ceiling token in the targeted space, and the targeted space must be free. He essentially creates entryway points.
Yep.
Spaces containing hold ceiling tokens are treated as entryway spaces. Entryway Overwatch tokens can be placed on them, but operators cannot use them to move to and from their upper floor area. Hold ceiling tokens are not gadgets and are indestructible. So he essentially makes, from my understanding, a like an Overwatch or not an Overwatch token, I'm drawing a blank on where you can put your little square token
Like
on
he in vertical rooms or like what do you mean? Like
uh
he,
in like entry these are yeah, like where you can actually just like camp a spot.
yeah.
Um that was my understanding
Hmm.
of the ability. So I see clearly how this can be very good, but I don't like the fact that it's like, okay, this seems way more complicated than it needs to be.
Okay. I don't think it's very complicated. In fact, I mean, you can see my shirt. It's right here. There's a reason I'm wearing this shirt.
Okay.
Buck is my favorite character in the game right now, easily.
Okay.
He's at top of S tier. Top of S tier.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. All right. Orange Destroy, which is really good.
Yep.
He's got 3 uses of his gadget, which is crazy to me because I think his gadget is insanely good. I'm surprised that he doesn't have two. Um, and so, okay, so what you talked about using him as a way to create a little Overwatch uh, token just anywhere you want is a good way to use him. Like for instance, if there's like a small little hall you could that the defenders need to run through to get somewhere that your other attackers are going, you could open up a hole and overwatch him with Buck, and obviously his range 1 to 3 gun is incredible. So
Hmm.
nobody's going to walk through there. That's a good use of him. You could do that. I've used him like that.
You
But
could do that.
really,
That's wrong.
no,
But
it's not wrong. No. Here's the thing. There's no wrong way to use Buck. That's a totally valid way to use Buck. But basically, what he does specifically that I like to use him for is he makes portable, he makes little places to deploy your gadgets through. Okay. So he can pair with tons of operators and even your basic gadgets. All right. So for instance, a good way to use him, man, I'm upstairs. I want to get a drone down to a room. but I can't. None of the entryway spaces are close enough for me to get the drone in. Oh, you open up a hole with Buck, you deploy the drone onto his hold token, immediately scans. The possibilities are endless. Let me just run off a few ways I've used him. You compare him with Flores, who has the explosive drones. Suddenly now you can destroy things on the interior of the map before your guys even get in and already put the defense on the back foot. You can pair him with some of these like Hibana or Ace, like we've talked about, how that could be tricky. How you can throw and deploy stuff down these holes. So you can pair him with any of your operators that have throwable or deployable gadgets, and there'll be some kind of synergy there that the defenders aren't going to be prepared for. One of the things I like to do is either with Blitz or Ying, you can drop a hold ceiling token and have Blitz or Ying. Blitz can deploy his flashbang in a room and stun all the enemies in a room before you move your guys in, right? All from the safety of the upstairs. There's so many. Those are just a couple of ways you compare them. That's one of the ways I've used him before. Or you could use him to make a little Overwatch token. The reason he's so controversial is because there's this little tricky thing you can do that some people don't like, where you could create a hold ceiling token and put a claymore on it and blow it up. And if that's next to an enemy operator, they'll take 2 red die damage. Which is an annoying move, to be fair.
Yeah.
Some people think that's overpowered. I personally don't. And we could talk for. It's been an argument I've had with people on the Discord for a while, so that could be a whole video onto its own.
Yeah.
But all that to say, he's really good and he's versatile. That's the thing.
It's interesting that because you brought up a point just now that I don't think I've ever done in any of my games is I don't think I've ever done a deployable from the upstairs.
Oh yeah,
I've literally never even. I was like,
you should start doing that. That's what he's for.
Well, apparently I should.
Yeah, you should. That's basically what his ability is for. Like you use it as an entry space for everything except moving characters on. So gadgets. That's what you want to use them for.
Yeah, because the way I was taking it was, oh, you actually can create more entryway points to go upstairs, and you can pop in rooms that don't have the entryway spots.
Yeah.
But because you can't do that with him, I was like, okay, so I guess it's more for just being able to camp a spot that normally doesn't have one from the safety of the upstairs.
Yeah.
So
which can be useful for sure.
Yeah, which again is kind of the weird thing about the video game or the board game, where you're like, well, why would you camp this upstairs when literally no one would ever walk into that spot? Because that's the only because you don't. I do think the board that is kind of odd, where you should be able to kind of hit the adjacent areas where you have your little square token, but it's more of just like, I don't want you coming from this way. That's why I have my token here.
Exactly.
So that's what I thought his ability was for, hence why he's down here. But taking into consideration the fact that you just put deployables through it is really good.
Well, and I mean, and throwables too. So
and throwables,
frag grenades, flash grenades, smoke grenades.
That's true.
You could throw it down there.
That's true.
Again, he is so flexible. You could pair him up with so many operators. You can use him with even just your basic tactical inventory, and that's why I think he's really good. And his short range gun is good. So if you want to use him to just camp a little hallway that you don't want the defenders to walk through, that's a good use for him too. Like
I agree. Yeah. I don't know why I thought these were going to be alphabetical. Where is he? He's right here. Yeah, I will agree with you. And I also, I mean, you're wearing the shirt, so
I mean,
come on. Like, I can't like not. I don't have a Rainbow Six.
I will say the only drawback on his ability is there are some maps that he's not as good on.
Okay. Well, then never mind.
He's got to go D2. No, there are just a couple maps that, for instance, with him, you typically want to get him. You're probably wanting to get him upstairs really quickly to just immediately get some gadgets down in interior rooms. And there are some maps that do not have the blue entryway spaces for you to go up on the first round.
Okay.
So that's something to consider. But even then, I think that's why he's still got his line of sight as well. So you could still use him to just open up a whole wall, a whole ceiling line of sight.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
So, I guess one thing that was, because someone brought up like that the guy that was commenting, his example where he was like, there's a bunch of rules that need to be errated, and I was like, I can't think of any. Like, what, do you have an example? And his example was Buck combining with Amaru. Like Amaru's apparently is not actually legal based off what the designer has come out and said. And I'm like, okay, that happens
Yeah.
all the time, where it's like you can't have a contingency
Yeah,
for
I
every
think
single operator.
Buck's ability is easy to remember. Is just like you can use them for anything except moving characters around on it. So that
Yeah,
naturally, excludes things like Sledge and Amaru. There was a thing with Sledge early on where Sledge's ability, when he breaches something, he places his mini on something. And somebody was saying, well, if he's placing it and not moving there, then Sledge can move through Buck's hold wall. And it's like, well, no, obviously. Like, obviously, that's not what it was meant. Like,
yeah,
so yeah.
yeah. My thing
The
was
more
kind of like,
controversial thing is about the Claymore. People really don't like that you can do that. So
and it
people
just
ban me from using them a lot because of that, even though I don't
that's
even use that claim move that often.
I mean, yeah, just that's the great thing about board games. It's just like house rule it. Hey,
Yeah, it's
that
house rule.
that's not allowed. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Mhm.
really think it should be. Well, I guess we're not playing.
Yeah. No, but you should
Yeah,
definitely be using Buckmore. He's
I
fun. He's
apparently
really
should.
fun.
Yeah, I was like, man, he feels really restrictive for no reason.
No,
Um,
he opens things up for you more than anything.
I guess so. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he'd be higher up on my list if I had ever, literally ever done stuff from the upstairs.
Yeah.
So we are actually at the character that from my memory of the video game, think that weirdly, because it's not like it's like, okay, sometimes again, these characters cannot be taken one to one.
Hmm.
You like all of these characters are like, there's not a character here that I'm thinking like, man, that's not even close to what the video game version is. And this character does have his ability from the video game, but I think he's actually hindered also, and that
Hmm.
Capitao. Because in the video game, he has smoke arrows as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then here he just doesn't.
That'd be
He has,
interesting if he had both.
huh?
I said that would be interesting if he had both. I think it might be
I
a
don't
little
see
too
why he
strong.
doesn't. Like that's kind of like, because like like not make it like, so in this case, he has a throwable fire overlay.
Yeah.
When an operator enters a space containing fire ends in action, they sustain an orange die. Um, and I'm trying to remember, does a fire overlay is orange regardless, right? It's
Yeah,
not
usually.
just
Yeah,
okay.
orange
I'm like,
die.
it's not just from his ability. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I think like again, I think fire is huge. It's an instantly orange die of damage with a throwable, so it cover a lot of areas. Can be very
Hmm.
restrictive for people moving around. 4 to 6 range is good. 5 run. He's a solid damaging attacker.
Yeah.
He's lower because I do not like that he doesn't have. He's almost inherently nerfed. Like
Yeah.
I think he should, and maybe it's because they gave you smoke grenades in your tactical overlay,
Yeah.
that having that on top of a character that also has smoke, with not a lot of characters on defense that can ignore that.
Hmm.
I think it was maybe a design having a stroke, a design decision. Uh, but maybe I almost feel like maybe do 2 each, not 3
That's
each,
interesting.
or do a little slash and you can make it fire or smoke. 3
Yeah.
uses, but you can make it fire or smoke.
I think probably if I were to ask JB, it's probably he might say that smoke overlays themselves are generally pretty powerful, especially for
Yeah.
the attackers. And giving the attackers extra might just be a little too much. I'm personally of the mind looking at it. I would put him kind of low myself, just because I would prefer smoke overlays to fire overlays personally. But fire overlays, when placed right, can be really good. For instance, um, when somebody reposts from an Overwatch or does any kind of response, if they're in a fire blade, they'll take another orange die of damage.
Hmm.
So that's powerful,
Yeah.
obviously.
I guess it depends. How often are you winning um by objective or by elimination?
Yeah, I think elimination probably
I,
happens
I
more often.
um well, you personally, like, do you usually win by removing, like, killing all 5 of the opposing attackers, or are you winning by holding out um or completing the objective? Because for the
Mm,
most part, it's typically like the video game where you're gonna be.
yeah, I think 7 maybe 7 to 8 times out of 10 is probably elimination.
Okay.
And there's like 2 out of 10 times where you actually complete the objective. But usually
Yeah.
it's when I say that it's elimination, but somebody is on the cusp of completing the objective typically. So it's
Yeah.
kind of weird that way. Yeah.
So again, I wouldn't put him at A. I would put him at B.
Hmm.
Um, I would put him at A if he had his smoke. Honestly,
Yeah.
he'd be way higher if he had both. And I just think
Smoke's powerful.
this was the first character that I was like, wait a minute, doesn't he have two types of arrows? That's why he's really good.
Hmm.
Again, this was another character that was constantly being used as on the attacking side, and I get it. Hey, I need to do damage or get these people because the way fire works, because smoke is like, okay, I just can't see you, but I'm
Yeah.
fine. I can still stay here. And you might not be able to see me as well. So you
Yeah.
just kind of basically made it to where you can run past if you need to, depending on who is defending and who's attacking and all that.
Yeah.
But with fire, it's like, well, you're not going to stay there
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's
because
tricky.
then
He's one of those. It's one of those perfect opportunity moments where when you can use him well, he's really
Mhm.
great. If the defense makes the mistake of putting their characters close together in a clump, a fire blaze is incredible.
Yeah.
You can also use him to block an entryway space for a round. Somebody
Hmm.
might not walk down if they're going to take multiple orange die of damage to get out, right? Um, but the other thing about fire overlays, even though they can be powerful, and here's my biggest thing with them, is you could still roll 0 damage on that orange die
I
and
get that
nothing
is
happens for them.
true. That is true.
And like so they're unpredictable. And that's
Yeah.
I think my real issue. You could either deal 3 damage to somebody or 0.
Yeah.
And when you roll 0, it feels real bad.
That is a good point. I'm trying to look at actually I'm looking at all my characters that I have coming up. Yeah, I think that's also another reason why I have him lower is because there is a
Mhm.
chance you could do no damage, which then he's like it's useless. Like he did
Yeah,
nothing. Um, but I don't think a lot of people are going to take that risk.
probably, yeah.
I mean, because that what an orange die goes up to 2. It has 1-3 on it,
It has
doesn't it?
1 3 on it, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I I think with fire overlays, you just with my personal play style, we like chances of you rolling 0 is like you said, it's either 3 or 0, but average you're gonna do 2.
Yep.
And 2 damage on someone with 4 health or 5 health is a lot.
Yeah.
So, but again, he's down here lower because man, it's so weird. I don't know. I imagine it's a design decision.
Yeah. It's probably also just to make it more streamlined to not give every operator too much stuff. So
Yeah,
and he gets
because
3 of them, which is also pretty good. I
it is
mean,
good. Yeah, I feel like this would be a paragraph if it was like, oh, and also smoke, because I also have to explain what smoke does on here.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I'd put him still like I wouldn't put him at A. Like we're not getting up to my high A's. I'm giving you
Yeah.
Buck because that's more of a me not necessarily utilizing him correctly. And you're wearing the shirt. If you weren't wearing the shirt, I'd probably put him at A.
That's fair.
But but yeah, gotta represent.
Yeah.
Gotta represent my boy. Um, I'd put Capitao at B
Yeah, I think it's a good spot. I'll put him for mine on C.
on
I
C.
put him just because I have found him tricky to use. I've used him a couple times,
Hmm.
and it's one of those where I've never quite felt like I've been able to use him well. Because
Okay.
I think he doesn't quite work for what I like to do when I attack, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And here, I'm very curious what you think of here. And I put him down here mainly because you're you're mainly I feel like you're using him purely for his innate ability, and then his ability kind of goes away.
Mhm.
And this is one of my mains in the video game, and I have a fun story about this character actually. But my number 20 whatever is Glaz.
Ah,
Um, so yeah, and he has this flip sight, so he has line of sight through smoke and gas overlays, and he's a
mhm.
sniper, so his best range is from far away, which is very limiting on a lot of maps when you
Yep.
need line of sight, and you're like, well, I'm probably not. I need the hallway to to be clear.
Mhm.
However, this bottom ability is super freaking good at the very beginning of the map or of the
Yep.
match. Uh, which I mean, to be fair, like the defense can keep hidden operator tokens for quite some time. If they're not having to utilize one of their operators all that much.
Mhm.
But being able to get that info, like at the very beginning, is really good. But like a lot of games that have special abilities, I don't like the fact that it doesn't carry throughout the whole match.
Yeah.
So eventually, he will have no ability except being able to see through smoke and gas overlays, and eventually that they're not going to be running rampant throughout the whole map. So I really like his ability, then I don't.
Yeah. So I think okay. I think starting out playing, I would have totally agreed with you. Um, I when the Glaz rework first happened, because this wasn't what he was like in the prototype. Actually, this was a switch happened like a year into when we started playing, and then they updated all the operators, and this is a new version of him. He used to
Oh,
have one
okay.
of those. He used to have one of those. Used to have his ability where you looked through smoke and gas, but you had to activate it, like
Oh,
with
like the
Monty.
Montagne or
Yes.
Amaru, like it was like he
Yeah,
had like a
it was like
round
a yeah,
reset.
you had to like activate it and then it would reset.
Yeah, okay.
So he's been in my mind, I think of Glass higher because I think that's like a pretty big buff that he just automatically sees through smoke and gas.
Mm-hmm.
And I prioritize. So the thing is, sure, like revealing hidden operator tokens is great. Like I totally agree with you, but he's a damage dealer and a sniper, and when you put him upstairs, he can't hold down angles from the upstairs pretty much because
Right.
his short range isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very pro con thing. Like his ability is good, just automatic information, but you're taking away a very high damage dealer, and not just damage dealer on mini maps, the ability to watch across the entire map, which can be very powerful. So on
Right.
I wish I could show it. There was a powerful play, a strong meta developed with him for a while on Consulate where, Consulate has those long, it's just a big long map.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just hide him behind a smoke and just still block off an entire hallway down a whole map. And people just couldn't walk through it and they couldn't shoot back at him either because, he's sitting in a smoke.
Yeah.
So I think he's pretty powerful. I think both his abilities are very powerful and they both have pro cons. Because obviously, if you don't position him well, you're not going to get the high damage dealing
Yeah,
gun.
no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like this is a character I actively play. I really
Yeah.
like his abilities. But I kind of had to put him lower
Mhm.
mainly because in the board game and video game as well,
Yeah.
it's about versatility.
Yep.
Like generally speaking, how like Glaz is really high up in the perfect scenario.
Yeah. He plays
But
a
every
role.
every character is the best character in the perfect scenario.
That's
So
true.
generally, if no one is throwing smoke or you run out of smoke, grenades, you don't have a way to do it. I mean, hell, if Capitao was actually utilized like how he
Mhm.
should be, you'd have more smoke. But you run out of smoke, and then I mean, gas overlays are specific to characters.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, if they're used or they're not around, well, he doesn't have an ability. Eventually,
That's
hidden
true.
operator tokens come around. You get that info, which is really, really good when you need intel and you're wanting to attack. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I thought you had 3 tokens in there. They're
Mhm.
all decoys.
Yeah.
Great. Now I have a entryway point. But eventually that goes away. So then you kind of have a sniper that you need line of sight at 7 or more spots, which is
Mhm.
very map specific. So he's really good, but then I also can think he could be really bad.
Yeah. That's really fair. I think one thing in his defense, he's got an orange destroy, which is very
Yeah, that's
useful
true.
in later in the game. I think of him more as like a deterrent, kind of like an
Hmm.
overlay. Like he's an area controller. You stick
Yeah.
him up at the edge of a map, looking down one angle, and you're just saying, okay, someone's gonna have to get up close on me, or they're just not gonna cross this part of the map.
Yeah, you use him as a sniper. I completely agree.
Exactly.
You're like,
Yeah.
here's where he's
So
going to be camping. Like, I'm never activating him. He's overwatching this entire
yeah.
time.
Yep.
And that's it.
Uh,
So I agree. I want him higher. I
yeah.
really do.
Even just
But
using him to get an early kill through a smoke, like if somebody's
mhm.
got an overwatched a door, you can throw down a smoke. There's some tricky moves that you can do where you
Yeah.
could
Oh,
you could have
man.
Glass parked in front of a door, but another operator destroys the door and throws the smoke in front of Glass, and then Glass activates his turn and just gets a naked shot at the operator who was overwatching behind the
Oh
door.
man, you gave me the perfect segue. So, story time.
Okay.
I have very, very little stories from Rainbow Six Siege of me
Mhm.
being good. And this isn't me being good. Literally, I'm playing Glaz, started the map, couldn't even tell you the map. But I literally like just looked up at a window and shot and killed a guy.
Just
And
randomly.
yeah, just he like I swear on my life, I don't do aimbots, I don't cheat. I do not care enough about this fucking video game to do that.
Yeah.
The guy freaked. He was just
Thought
like
you
in
cheated.
the chat. Yeah, he was just throwing the biggest fit. And I'm like, that was the biggest freak accident that like I wish I could take credit for that, but it was so funny of just like, oh hey, window, it just popped up there and it
I
just
was
killed a
playing a
guy.
game on the house map one time. The match was ending, and I knew the guy was just to the floor below me, and I had like 10 seconds left. And I had a friend with me, and I was like, whatever. I just pulled out my pistol and I just started shooting into the floor. I got a headshot kill just randomly and won the game. It was crazy.
Yeah, so Glaz does have a special place in my heart. I think he's so cool.
Mhm.
Um I want to put him in A. I just can't. I can't
Yeah.
put him in A. Um, where is he? Is that him?
Yeah.
I gotta put him at high B.
Yeah. I think for a while, if you had asked me a year ago before when we were just playing the core box for a long while, I would have put him higher up. I think now he's pretty solidly in B, somewhere in
In
the
B.
middle
Okay.
there.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
we're
me.
still in the same spot.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, while we're on the topic of snipers, let's go to the other sniper.
Yeah.
Let's go up with Callie, which apparently I remember when she came out. And I was like, oh, another sniper.
Hmm.
Apparently she sucks. Apparently no one
In the
really
video
likes
game.
her. Yeah,
Yeah.
they haven't ever really worked her. Because she kind of has to play like as a sniper. Um, and which is weird in a game like Six Siege, where it's
Yeah.
very up close and personal. You don't want or necessarily need a sniper. But this is one of those characters that I was talking about, where her explosive lances, throwable, ignoring maximum of one line or fortified wall, or one barricade to just do a destroy red on all always visible gadgets and all barricades in the room.
Hmm.
I think again, like how you were talking about with Thermite with adjacency, for this doesn't require that.
Yeah. And it's not
So
electronic too, which is good.
yeah, it really can't be canceled, and there are a lot of always visible gadgets. Um,
And
so
barricades.
and barricades that just blow up and completely open up.
Yeah.
Um,
And her
her
gun is better than Glaz's because she can still reliably get kills at medium range, unlike Glaz. Because Glaz, he has two red dice, but it's
I'm
two
like,
dice
yeah.
around. I
If no one's on cover, yeah, she has four
I
dice.
mean, it's still three dice is better than two dice, but with no cover,
Okay.
four dice is much better than two dice.
That is yeah, that is true. Yes.
Yeah.
But oh, they do have the exact same sniper dice.
Yep.
He's better at close range though.
Yeah, he is slightly better at close range. That's true.
Um,
Pros and cons. Always pros
yeah.
and cons.
So and they have the exact same of health and run. So I kind of I put them both together. Like it just felt right.
Yeah.
There was no real rhyme or reason. I had her like I have my list of all of them
Hmm.
like together. Which doesn't really matter a whole lot. Don't look at it. This is not numbered, but she is also kind of at the bottom, but I have Glaz. Oh, I had Glaz like way down there.
Yeah.
Like Glaz was like number 59. But
Oh,
hence why
with all 60
with all
ops.
60, which again probably was more of just information overload. It's
Yeah.
just like, here we go. So it made it a lot better when we separated it. But yeah, so I her ability is really, really good,
Hmm.
but hence why she's higher. But again, as a sniper, utilizing them I find is a little bit more tricky.
Yeah.
So, uh,
I would say I think her ability is great, by the way, especially because there was a while, especially it would counter my play style because on defense, I can often tend to go for a gadget heavy setup, especially with I like to do a lot of cameras sometimes, and
mhm.
this is a pretty hard counter to that. I would go, the most recent video I put out was a game between Jack and Barrison, who also does 6 siege videos, and they played on Bank, which is a very hard map to attack. And Jack used Cali, I think, in a very game-winning manner. It's very hard to get into Bank, and just the ability to destroy all barricades in a big room is what allowed his operators more leeway to get in. And then Callie was able to get a bunch of kills just from sitting in the back of Bank and sniping. Like,
Yeah.
and Orange Destroy, that's just solid. But like you were saying, if you don't get that 7+ range, yeah, I mean, then it's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I could just be mixing them up. I think there are other characters that have a similar ability of kind of an
Yeah.
AoE destroy, that wasn't as restrictive in terms of the weapon. So yeah, like really, I mean, she's kind of like right there. Like I'd still put her at B.
Yeah.
And for me, like where is she? She is right somewhere. Here she is. Like this, like interchangeable, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you got 2 snipers.
I think it depends on just what you want to accomplish that game, right?
Yeah. Man, God, would it be smart to ever play with both Callie and Glaz? Probably not.
I think on some maps it could
It
be.
might be really good. That'd be a wacky.
Hey, why not
What?
try it, you know?
Yeah, you
Like,
pick both of them and then just pick the other 3 that kind of complement both of them. You make them the star, which is tricky because then if people kill them and you're like, well, my whole team
yeah,
comp was around them.
that's true.
Uh,
Yeah, I think I might favor Glaz a little more,
yeah.
even though I think her gun is better. And that's just because I like, as when I play attack, I like to use smokes a lot. And so being
Okay.
able to have something that sees through them is a little more useful to me.
Yeah.
But also sometimes I like to go for a heavy utility destroy team comp. In that
Hmm.
case, I would bring Callie instead. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish that game.
We
If
need
the
to get an
defense
A.
brings a lot of gadgets, especially a lot of cameras,
Yeah.
Callie is better for sure.
Yep, I agree. We need to get an A because then we'd have we'd have a funny shape in the
Yeah.
tier
Oh,
list.
that is very true.
So
I
whoever my
currently
next one is an automatic A,
nice.
just no matter what. My number where
Pulls out the worst operator in the game.
I'm gonna laugh if you think so. You're like, oh yeah, this one sucks.
Yeah.
So my number 20 in this case is Zofia.
Ooh.
You're like, ooh, yeah, really bad, really bad. That's D tier right there.
No, I actually
Um,
feel good about putting her in A.
oh really?
Hell yeah.
We're slowly, yeah, we're kind of at that point where again we've talked it like none of these operators are bad. Even Hibana is at a D. It's like,
Hmm.
well, probably not, but so line of sight, ignoring a maximum 1 barricade, targeted operator receives a stun and sustains a die of damage. Yeah, that's just super solid.
Yeah.
Like stunned sucks, and
And orange
because
die.
and an orange die. As we were talking about a little bit with Capitao, where it's a fire overlay, orange die could be 0, could be 3.
Hmm.
Um, and on a lot of characters, that is huge.
Yep.
Because
And
and on top
orange
of the fact that
destroy as well.
yeah, 5 health, solid. I mean, she sucks at long range, but as we just talked about, that's difficult to do. You're most likely not
Hmm.
attacking at 7 unless it's just a last resort.
Yep.
So 2 red and potentially 2 orange. Middle range is disgusting. And the thing is you can do your action to do an orange dive damage, and regardless of range of 1 to 6, you're probably killing on a shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Well, and you can do that. So something to consider is, I mean, you're doing this behind the safety of a barricade, which is great.
mhm.
One of the good ways of using her is you could target a decoy token, and if the decoy token suffers damage, it has to be revealed. So
Oh, yeah.
this is a good
Yep.
way that you could, from behind a wall, not only could you deal early damage, but you could reveal a token and know whether it's real or fake,
Well,
which
if
is
you're in
also very
line of
useful.
sight to shoot, wouldn't you be in line of sight to see the decoy token?
Well, unless you're behind a barricade. So that's what I'm
Gotcha.
meaning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yep.
Yeah.
So again, she's a little bit lower on the overall because her ability only has 2 uses.
Hmm.
Granted, they could be very powerful and probably an insta kill.
Yeah.
But if you, let's say you can see 2 people, um, you could use your ability on 1, stun them, do some damage, which might kill them if they have already sustaining damage, and then
It's
use
true
your
as
shoot
well.
on someone else. So
And
go ahead.
I was just saying, and her gun is good, and she's got Orange Destroy. I mean,
Yeah.
even with just 2 uses, I mean, I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah. We are getting to a point where we're probably gonna have a lot of A's, but
Yeah.
I will say I'm not necessarily taking where they're on my ranking list as where they're going in the tier list. I haven't been
Yeah.
going because otherwise
I
from
mean, you put
21
Buck
to
up in S, even though you
I
had him
did put
low.
Buck up in S. That was more of a well, I wasn't utilizing him correctly. But if we were doing that, it's like, okay, well, 20s through 30s are probably C's and D's
Yeah.
if I was doing that. So yeah, I'd agree. I'd put Zofia up at A.
Yeah. I think I put her up in A. I had already had Ying and Gridlock in A. I would put her over. I think I'd put her over both of them. I like her. She's very aggressive. She's
Okay.
fun.
Now it looks like a penis. God, I'm 30. Okay, so she's very straightforward too. Like
Oh yeah.
that's the thing.
She
And
blows things up and she deals damage.
yeah, which is great because something that we haven't really taken into consideration because it's like, okay, well, how do you win? Well, you win by objective or by killing. But
Mhm.
by killing, you shorten the amount of time your opponent has
You're
because this
1/5 of the
is
way to victory. Yeah.
and well, yeah, and just objectively, you have now taken out a resource that they
Yep.
could use. And if you do it on someone who hasn't used any of their gadgets and you're just like, well, I planned on using them, well, they're dead. So
Yeah. And the reason I would put her ability over someone like Capitao's is because she has the same unpredictability of the orange die, but you know you'll at least get a stun.
you do get a
So
stun.
she
Yeah.
does multiple things. So you
Yeah.
might stun and deal damage, but even if you just stunned, that's still good.
Yeah.
So
God, Capitao should be he should have smoke. I'm homebrewing him.
yeah.
Giving him some. Okay, now we are on uh one. This was probably the newest character that I last time I played Rainbow Six Siege. Um and we got Sam Fisher. Um so number 19, the Argus camera
Mhm.
for 0. Now the alt skin of him is actually Sam Fisher. This is not.
Yeah.
I think in the lore, I think it actually is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I actually, when I play the game, I use the alt mini, but I use this
You
profile
use this
because,
one, yeah.
yeah, he's got the mask on. It's really cool.
I remember the last time I played, my buddy was picking Tachanka, and he like grabbed his alt skin, and I'm like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
we're not doing that. I don't have any of
Yep.
those. So Argus camera, throwable or vertical. You place an Argus camera on one side of a section of heavy wall in the targeted space. Whenever an opposing operator enters the space in the room containing an Argus camera or ends an action when they receive a ping and sustain a damage. If I remember right in the video game, this was like a two-way camera.
Yep.
It could like rotate in the wall. I think that's kind of what it's saying here, that you can place it on the opposite side.
Yep.
Okay, good. I was like, am I reading that correctly?
hmm And against
Um,
a heavy wall. It doesn't have to be a red or an orange wall, like a straight
yeah.
up heavy wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very curious where you put him because he again is not restricted by cover.
Yep.
Not the best die in the world, but at least he's getting a lot of them.
Well, he's one of the ones that has no cover die, so that's obviously pretty good. He's not
Yeah.
being obstructed by cover in any way.
And
Um,
I like the versatility of just a free potential damage. It's
yep.
yellow, not amazing, but it's still some like 'cause I think the camera shoots like darts.
Yeah.
But having the ping, it can be very, very good, especially um and if I'm not mistaken, this would affect decoy tokens. Does this
Yep.
affect decoy tokens where it's like, okay, now you're pinged, now I know if you're in there or not?
Yep. And it flips. Yeah.
Yeah.
The moment token becomes located, you flip it over. Yeah.
Yep. So so yeah, very, very good. But it is electronic, it's always visible, and it can be
Yeah.
just and it's yellow, so it could be just easily destroyed.
It can be easily destroyed, but here's what I'm gonna say. I'll definitely put him in A. I really like 0. And one of the reasons is because you can shoot his thing through a heavy wall.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one who can kind of mess around with heavy walls that way.
Yeah.
Nobody else can just ignore heavy walls except maybe Thermite.
Right.
But here's what's cool. Like you throw this thing in here, and if there's like multiple decoy tokens in a room, like at the beginning of the game, for instance, you shoot a camera on the other side, you target that room. It's one of those things. What I love about this, it's deceptive. You look at it and you go, oh, a yellow die, right? A defender could be like, whatever, I'll just like walk through this room, a yellow die. The yellow die isn't good. Okay. But the thing is, the thing will roll every time you keep hitting a space in that room or hitting an action there. So if you're rolling the yellow die multiple times, even if you just keep rolling once, that could still be a lot
Mm-hmm.
of damage. So it kind of forces them to have to destroy it because even little chip damage can result in an easy kill later in the game. Like we've
Yep.
talked about how every point of health matters.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can still roll 2 damage on this die, which is
That's true.
annoying. So what would
That
happen
is
is,
annoying.
here's what
It's
I
like,
like about it.
oh
Yeah,
god, I
it's
got shot in
annoying.
the neck. What the
Yeah,
fuck was
so
that?
what I like about this is it puts the defender in a spot where you put this in a room that has a bunch of decoy tokens, even if it has operators, they have to choose, okay, if I want to do anything in this room, if I don't want to take up to 2 damage, I have to reveal my token and shoot this thing.
Yeah.
Right. Which is annoying for the defenders at the beginning of the game. But also, if they're already revealed, which what this does is if they don't want to have to suffer a bunch of yellow dive damage, they have to destroy it. That's 1 action gone. And now they're limited on their turn.
Yep.
So either way you look at it, it wastes their action economy, or it deals damage, or it locates them. So, like, I think it's just, just.
No, I agree. I agree. We're in my personal list, and whenever we're talking probably about yours, now you have it easier because you didn't make a ranking list, so you
That's
get
true,
all the
yes.
bonuses of the tier list. You don't have to be like, well, they have to fall somewhere. Like you could be like, oh, this character's A, this character's A.
I don't know if I could. Yeah, I don't know if I could do a 1 to 30.
Your defense list is gonna just be all S, A through B. You'd have no one in D.
I don't know about that. We'll see.
Whoops. But yeah, again, he kind of had to fall somewhere. I do think, why did this get all weird? There we go. I do think it is a little bit tricky. And tricky, again, it's like at the beginning of the, especially if you kind of use them at the beginning of the game, you might be wasting them because it's like, yeah, I want to know if someone's there, but no one is around to take advantage of that ping. Or it's like, okay, well, you made me waste an action, but I don't need to use a second action.
Which is why using it later could be good because, especially if you've gotten into sight and you throw it in a room that they have to go through to get to you, they have to waste an action to destroy it, so they don't take chip damage.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's a thing that wastes actions. Really, is one of the big draws to me.
Yeah, I agree. So. Again, not making it 1-to-1 of my ranking list. Really, this is just my ranking list is now being used on who we're talking about and kind of where I personally place them. So I would agree. I would put 0 in A. Would I though? Maybe high B. I agree with you on everything, but man, it is.
I put him in A because I enjoy playing him personally.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him at high B.
Yeah,
I like the straightforwardness. If I'm comparing him to Zofia, I like the straightforwardness of Zofia, and just the sheer amount of potential damage and the stun.
Yeah,
but the ping is also really good, and using it late can be really good.
Interesting, right?
I'll do low A. I will do low A. And it's Sam Fisher. Come on.
Yeah. And I think his alt mini is one of the cooler looking minis in the game.
It is, yeah. All right, number 18. Very straightforward character. Blackbeard.
Very interesting character.
So 2 uses of a riot shield, or rifle shield, not riot shield. He just ignores 2 damage when targeted by shots.
Yep.
As we just mentioned, with yellow die of constant dot damage, every health counts. Being able to, as a reaction too, because again, in the video game, you'd have to set the shield and it protects you that way. Here, it doesn't really matter. Just you're like, oh, I had it up that time. Can make or break whether you are in the game. I think if it's like, I really need to get a kill on your side. If he survives, then I'm solid. I just need to defend 2. And if someone gets a really good roll and it's like, oh, I ignore 2 of that damage, that's really good. And I can't remember. Can you use multiple reactions in a row?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So theoretically, you could block 4 damage. But again, he kind of fell into this the middle area-ish because you only have 2 uses with it.
Yeah.
So
I would say too,
it goes away.
The thing for me with him, especially, I don't like his gun. Honestly, he's a good peeker. That's his role. But you want to be peeking at medium to long range. Sometimes that can be hard. But I mean, just being a tank can't be
Mm-hmm.
good. Like if
Because there's
you're
not a lot of tanks on attacking.
that's true. If you're behind heavy cover and you use this ability, that's five damage blocked, which is great. Like it
Yeah.
really is. So I don't want to ignore that. But his gun is not my favorite because even if you're shooting probably on average at medium range, if they have cover, 2 red is not going to get a kill.
Yeah.
So you really want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Long
I
range.
wouldn't. I never really use him as kind of like he's gonna be my damage dealer. It's more
Yeah.
he's a very good assistant with pushing,
Yeah.
where
He
it's like,
peeks. He
yeah,
pushes.
it's like, okay, he's not gonna be my damage dealer, but you can't necessarily still ignore him. So if you're bringing him with someone and they attack the other person, it's like, oh, well, he's still there, and
Yeah.
you didn't do any damage to him. Um, but again, he fell into that middle because I like having abilities that last me for a while.
Yeah.
And if you play him incorrectly and you rush and then he just is always getting attacked, well then he's like, oh, my rifle shields are gone
Yeah.
and I'm now dead.
His is one of those abilities that I don't know. I feel like I smack on, but it's one of those that when it is important, it's really frustrating. Like there have been
Hmm.
we don't talk highly of Blackbeard a ton, but I will say I've seen a lot of moments when somebody does bring him where somebody goes to shoot because they need a kill, and then the person goes, "Okay, I use my Blackbeard reaction," and the face that somebody makes when they realize they didn't kill him, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot about that."
Hmm.
Like, so you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Many times, yeah, of me playing where it's like they roll and then my friend will be like, he's still alive. And I'm like,
Exactly.
he is. Not
Yeah.
Blackbeard specifically, but a character where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I thought that was enough to kill him. It's like, no,
Nope.
no,
It's
it's
not.
not. Oh, it's
Yeah.
my turn now. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Especially somebody like if you're behind heavy cover as well, like 5 damage, that's pretty insane. Like you're
Yeah.
not gonna kill
Without a
them.
shield, like
Yeah.
without having an innate way of being a dick.
Hmm.
I guess it is a shield, but you know, like the little shield icon down here.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like I do think where is he? He's right here. I'd probably put him at high B still.
Hmm.
Um, even though he's higher on my ranking thing.
Yeah. For
I
mine, I don't think he's bad, but I'm putting him in C just because of the gun, honestly. That's all it is.
because of the gun. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is fair because again, I didn't necessarily take all that into consideration. I'm taking it more into consideration as we're talking on the tier list. But
Yeah.
whenever I did
It's
my
one of those
initial
where
ranking.
you soak up a lot of damage, but then if you're at short to medium range, sometimes you feel like you're not dealing a lot of damage.
Hmm.
So that can be kind of annoying,
Which is kind
but
of, I mean, it's God, this game's so good because it's like that in the
I
video
know.
game. You're not
Yeah,
pushing solo with Blackbeard.
exactly.
Um, but I mean, to be fair, if now we don't necessarily talk about we can't trade like you can in the video game because there's not
Mhm.
simultaneous stuff going on. But if you are pushing with Blackbeard though, you are probably going to win on a 1-to-1 because you
Mhm.
have that innate defense where someone else might not.
That's true. That is
Um,
true.
so so yeah, he's at 18.
I'm
And
actually, it's interesting that they didn't make him a heavyweight with six health and no sprint
are there
because
any attackers? Yeah, there's one. Is
there's
there
a couple.
are there two that have 6 health as on
Monty
a
does, Gridlock does.
Oh, you're right.
Who
Gridlock
else?
does have a 6.
Finka, I believe, might be a heavy as well.
Okay. Number
Yeah.
17. This one was difficult for me to place.
Mhm.
So I'm very curious where you are going to put him. Um, where is it? Yeah, I don't have a segue, so here we go. Nokk.
Oh,
I
I know
know
where I'm putting
Nokk.
Knock.
Huh?
I said I know where I'm putting Knock.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see where you put her.
I'm putting. Oh, that's right. It is a female.
Hmm.
You're like, I'm actually putting my own category F. I fucking hate Nokk. Oh, interesting. Um,
The F tier is just called Knock tier.
yeah, never ever picking. Banning just so I don't even have to deal with it.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so this more came down to the ability is just that, which is
Yep.
again where I ranked him. It's just never receives a ping. And there's
Hmm.
another character on defense who has the exact same thing. So it's
Yep.
like, okay, not getting a ping on attacking is really good,
Hmm.
but that's it. That's it. You just never get a ping. That's it.
Listen, I wouldn't underestimate it personally.
I'm not. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why it was difficult for me to place. It was kind of like, well, I'm ranking these kind of only based off their abilities here. not
Yeah.
really looking at weapons
So
or the other stuff. So I could see never getting a ping being really good because that
mhm,
allows the defender to be like, oh, I know where you're at. I can shoot through. I can do a
yeah,
lot of stuff. I can shoot through smoke now because I know where you're
yeah.
at. But the fact that she never gets that, you'll never know where she's at,
Yeah. The
theoretically.
reason the reason it's good is because oftentimes as defense, you'll set up a scenario where you'll put one of your characters behind a wall or a door, but the other one will have like a camera so that if somebody walks through, you can see them through the wall or the door, you can shoot them.
Hmm.
And like that's your whole strategy. And she can just so you'll be like, cool, I don't have to worry about they're not going to walk through here because this camera and this operator is like a risk. And they'd have to like destroy the camera and do all these things and waste a bunch of actions to get in. Nokk allows just be like, I see that you did this whole setup. I don't care.
Yeah.
And she just walks through, you
Yeah.
know?
I think where it gets difficult for me is because in the board game, obviously everything is very visible. So in the
Yes.
video game, because you don't know where people are at except through use of cameras and stuff,
Mhm.
and it's like, well, I can't see them through camera, which I think they actually nerfed it to where if they sprint, they're like a blur, where
Yeah,
it
like a
didn't used
little,
to be that you just literally couldn't see them. But because
yeah.
it's the board game, it's like, well, I know where you're at all times. I just can't
Mhm.
utilize the effect of a ping. I think it's why I put her down because I didn't like that. It'd be cool if she had like a decoy token or
That's
something
interesting. Yeah.
where
That
where
actually,
it's like, man, where is she? And you
that
had to
actually is
put,
kind of fascinating. It's like an attacker decoy.
yeah, you see what I'm saying? Where it's like, well, her
Yeah.
ability is never getting pinged, but
Mhm.
in the theme, she has like a cloaking device. So it's like, just give her like a decoy token where it's like, where is
Yeah, I see
she
what you mean.
entering
Yeah.
from that? But I don't know. Clearly, I'm not a designer, so
Yeah.
that maybe that was a plan. And this
Well,
ability is still good. That's why I was conflicted. Where it's like I bet you this would be really high for you, but I knew it couldn't be really low.
yeah, I think maybe like I know you said it's good ability, but I think maybe you still might be underestimating how good the ability is. Genuinely. Like and it could just be that maybe cameras and being located aren't as big of a deal against the people that you're playing with. Like they don't
Yeah.
utilize it that much. For us, I think Nokk is. I'm putting her just. I put her in S tier underneath Buck.
Okay.
Her gun at short and medium range is great, which is good
Yep.
because she can flank around where the defender might feel safe because they have a bunch of cameras set up. She can ignore cameras and then sneak around and get this really good roll on somebody with two oranges and a red. You
Yeah.
know, so I think the ability is really good because especially as someone who has been playing a lot of defense, I'll set up areas with cameras as the thing that protect me from the attackers. And when you
Hmm.
have Nokk, that is gone. And so it makes me have to put more effort to watch all the angles. Cameras aren't just going to be able to watch my back anymore. So and that can force me to put my defenders out farther than I want to. I'd want them to stick behind walls, but Nokk can just sneak in. And so I think she's really good because of that.
So I guess explain to me, because like if you're positioning really well with overwatching,
Yeah.
like where you don't really have like a blind side, it doesn't matter if they're pinged or not,
I
right?
mean, I guess that's
So
true, but like
so I guess I'm
consider,
just more curious as to how and this could be another kind of Buck situation where I'm not
yeah.
utilizing her as well as I should,
I
how
mean,
not
it,
receiving a ping, it's just like, well, I mean, if they're overwatching in good positions that I can't flank, okay, it
yeah,
doesn't matter if I you're gonna see me regardless of where I'm at, you know?
yeah. It again, it always does depend on map and how the defender sets up.
Okay.
But there'll be many times where you'll do something as an attack and you might get located, and now the defense can walk around and shoot you from behind a wall, right? But if Nokk gets in a scenario like that, you don't have that. You have to approach Nokk head on, and she could be overwatching, right? So it takes away the defense's ability to respond as well. Also, for instance, if somebody has a camera, you might want to throw a smoke grenade in a room so you can sneak in while
Hmm.
somebody's watching a room. But if there's a camera in there, the smoke doesn't do anything. But then it allows Nokk
Right.
to kind of sneak in inside the smoke like you would normally want. There's
Okay.
there's a bunch of different areas where you could use her. I
Okay.
mean, but like if you're like what you're saying, if in the games you find yourself where locating doesn't seem to matter as much, then yeah, I mean she would be lower. I
Yeah.
think for me it is a big deal
Okay.
that happens.
Okay.
So
Um, and this is again like you're oh God, you've been playing the game since what, like how many years now? 2 years on your
Uh,
channel?
since the Kickstarter campaign, so June of 2021,
3 years.
I think is what
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
Almost 3 years. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, and I didn't. So I've been playing it
Yeah.
since I got my physical copy. So this is actually great, a great video to watch
Yeah.
from two perspectives. Like if people are watching it on your channel, they might be people who are veterans, but
Mhm.
some people might come across your channel that are newbies, and they're gonna
Yeah.
um, be like, oh, okay, well, I didn't think of it like that. So this is why the tier lists and rankings are fun because it's discussion based.
Yeah, if it makes you
Um,
feel better, like I mean, usually a lot of the things that you've been talking about, I remember is how I felt back when we first started.
yeah.
So, um, it's something, and it's something interesting about this game. I noticed that sometimes I'll lose games because I'll be thinking because I've been like you're talking about, I've been playing for 3 years. I'll be playing against
Hmm.
someone newer, and I'll be playing, as if I'm playing against other players that I've been playing with for 3 years. But newer players don't think about it the same way, and so sometimes what I think is optimal ends up not being optimal because they're not even playing into what I think they'll play into,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
which again shows the depth
it's so
of
funny.
this game.
Yeah.
Well, it's also not even that. It's like I think a lot of things to take into consideration is maybe not like, well, you're just not, you don't have the high enough IQ. I watch Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Just where it's like, well, this just isn't how I do playstyle. Like
Yeah.
a lot of
There are
operators are
times.
based off playstyle where it's like well, you could use this character like this, or the
Yeah.
character is so versatile, I don't, they're not, there's not one way to play them.
Yeah. I think Nokk goes under that classification where I will often when playing against other players who played as long as me, I'll make gambles knowing that that other player will not take the gamble because they won't take certain risks.
Hmm.
But I'll sometimes play against newer players where I'll take a gamble and they'll take the risk because they actually don't know that it's unoptimal for them to risk it. But
Hmm.
because they risked it, they actually end up getting one up on me because I thought, oh well, they won't risk
Hmm.
coming around and shooting. And Knock is kind of one of those things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is again
like,
really cool because there's many times where it's like if you're playing against the same people all the
yeah.
time, like hidden movement games, for example, for me, um,
Hmm.
people that I've been playing get hidden those types of games with know I usually like to hug the edge. So
Yeah.
they know how to like how I think and how I
Yeah.
strategize so they can counter that versus people who don't know
Hmm.
me don't know that and I usually pull it off. This game
Yeah.
has the exact same thing, like you're talking about, where you're playing against the same people you've been playing with for 3 years. So they're not playing the
Mm.
game anymore; they're playing you.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Um,
would like to say one last thing about Knox specifically is that is one little rule that's hard to remember is that every time you get shot at, you're automatically located, which your other team can take advantage of. But Knock
oh
doesn't have to worry about
yeah,
that. So even if she gets shot at, she's not automatically located,
I did
which
forget about that rule.
is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So
Again, I did have a I knew the ability was good. I think I was like, I gotta place her somewhere,
yeah.
and I can't think of like, I can't put her up in the top 10.
Yeah. It's one of
For
those where as the attack, you normally want to be destroying all the cameras, which can waste your time, but Knock
hmm.
allows you to make more efficient use of your time and ignore cameras or located abilities, which can be very useful to getting to the objective.
Oh, here she is. It's so funny how
Yeah.
appropriate. I was like, where is she?
She's invisible.
Yeah. I am gonna put her in A.
Okay.
Um, I feel better about putting her in A than I do at putting her at 17.
That's fair.
So, okay, then number 16, which is what another character that was constantly being used in the video game by high level
Mhm.
players. Um, and that is one of the OGs, Twitch,
Edge.
my girlfriend. No.
My beloved.
Yeah, I have a very unhealthy relationship with these fake characters. Um, yeah, so one of the few characters that actually has their own drone.
Hmm.
Shock drones on completing the scan, you roll a red. For each hit roll, perform a destroy action on electronics gadget in the scan room. So we were talking about like kind of the AOE use with Kali, for example. Um, this is kind of a 2-for-1. You get a similar ability of Kali's, but you also get a full scan of a drone.
Yep.
Um, which apparently I always used Twitch when I was playing the game to attack operators to kind of like
Hmm.
dot them for damage. When I was watching the professionals play, they were destroying,
They gadgets.
and I was like, "You can
Yeah.
do that!
Yep.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that. God, they suck." Um, so drones are something that I personally know I do not utilize as well as I should when I'm playing, uh, because unlike again the board game kind of took all the fiddliness of what the video game can be, which is
Yeah.
not fiddly in the game, but just made it streamlined and simple. Hey, you're just gonna scan this whole room.
Yep.
Like in the video game, you would be able to do that anyway. You just rotate your analog stick or your mouse and just circle the room.
Mhm.
Here, boom, you just do it. So not only do you have tactical gadgets of drones that you might not even need to bring, you can put somewhere else on other gadgets, or if you want to have your own personal drones and you want to wait for a good position to drop hers, but you still want
Mhm.
to do a scan, you have the versatility of the regular drones until you get her in a position to drop her own drone. To now, again, I didn't put her as high. I think she is really good, but one is electronic, which could just be shut down,
Mhm.
and two, you do have to rely on the roll of
Yeah.
a red. You're guaranteed at least one
Yeah, you're
destruction.
guaranteed one at least. Yeah. So you'll destroy one gadget.
Yeah. So if it was more of a static, you do this much damage, which I think would be kind of OP if you were guaranteed like 2 damage.
Yeah.
Um, but if you can put it in a really good position, scan the room, ping everyone, and then also happen to roll a 3 and pop
Mhm.
gadgets, it's like you got a 2-for-1 there, which is why she's higher than Callie.
Yeah. This may be a hot take, and to be honest, I don't even know if I could tell you why. I I put her in D tier just because I never use her, and I
Oh,
don't even
okay.
know. I actually listen. I like looking at her gun, at her stats. She's good. She's a
Yeah.
drone. She just, but for whatever reason, every time I look at her, I think I'd rather play somebody else. And I even, it's not because she's bad, even. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean,
So I
there's
couldn't even
30
tell
operators.
you
You can only take 5.
that's
You know?
true. Like, yeah. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about it. Like, I always end up picking someone else over her.
Someone's got to
There's
go
for whatever
somewhere.
reason.
Yeah.
It's
Someone's got
true.
to
Like,
go
I
in
mean, it's
D
just
tier.
natural. In a game like this, naturally, there's just gonna be some operators that you just don't gravitate towards, and she's one of
Hmm.
those. And it's not like I could tell you I don't like her because of this stat.
Yeah.
I just always pick somebody else.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
think I think I've played her one time maybe. I
Okay.
couldn't even tell you. But
Yeah,
she's
it
not
is
bad.
weird
Like,
because you look at it and you see drone and you're like, well, I have drones. And so
yeah.
you just kind of think, well, all I'm getting is a scan. Like just
Hmm.
this is naturally what like I think of with drones. So it's like, well, I can just go in that room and see them anyway. So I don't really need to drop a drone. But when you
It's
start getting
true.
higher level, or man, again, I'm getting so much info from watching high tier players. They were
Yeah.
popping drones, like tossing them and immediately going into it. I'm like, God, I
Yeah, no,
suck.
drones are very important. Even when you're not trying to build tokens anymore, being able to tag someone and then shoot them through a wall
Yeah, yeah.
is very powerful. Like I
Because
love using drones, but I just don't know what
mhm.
it is about Twitch. I guess I just prefer other drones. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's because Six Siege and Rainbow Six Siege is really at its heart a game about information. The team that
Yeah.
gets the most information and communication, which in the board game you only communicate with yourself unless you're playing teams.
Hmm.
Um, you that will win you the game.
Yeah.
Or it'll definitely help. Like you still have to be able to aim and shit, but yeah, no, I agree. You see drones and you're like, well, that's boring.
Hmm.
That's lame.
See,
Uh,
it's funny because I see drone, I go, oh, drone, that's someone I want to keep my eye out on.
yeah,
But I genuinely don't know. Like, I don't think she's bad. She's got her short range gun, incredible. That's a
yeah,
great gun.
yeah.
Like,
If I
uh,
remember right, I think it's a shotgun
yeah,
in
being able
the.
to destroy up to 3 gadgets, I mean, that's really good. I just don't
Hmm.
know what it is. I could
Hmm.
not tell you. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell you.
I mean, especially yeah, because you have that capability. Just the versatility of being able to move the drone from
Yeah.
what is it, 6 spaces they can move.
Yeah. You
Um,
deploy it adjacent to you, then move at 5. Yeah.
yep, yeah. So yeah, you don't even have to go in the room to deal the
I
damage.
know.
You actually make it safer. So, I would put her at A. I would actually put her right now. Where is she?
Yeah.
Oh,
She's one of those, like, you tell me you
there.
put her in A. I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. But I just don't play her.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's why she would just go into D because I just never pick her. So, not because I think she's bad.
Okay. Well, cool, cool. Man, I'm curious to know who you're gonna put in D because you do think they're bad.
Yeah.
Really, no one. Okay. So that was number 16. Number 15. We have boom, boom,
Are
boom.
we halfway? Halfway
We
through?
are halfway there. I know. Uh, Which I'm gonna put
Mm.
timestamps on all the characters on this video because I knew it was gonna be long. Number 15, we're smack dab in the middle. We got Maverick. So again, this was kind of a character. I feel like there was someone else who also did this ability.
Mira does this
Mira,
ability.
yeah, of being able to basically do an action, make a hold wall, and
Mhm.
also then get a free shoot out of it.
Yes.
So um the fact that you can get 2 shoot actions in one turn is really
Very
good.
powerful draw.
Yes. So which apparently Maverick is not utilized that as much in the video game
Mhm.
anymore from what I was listening. But yeah, the action breaching torch. If he's in a space containing a section of a light or fortified wall, you cover the wall with a hold wall token of the size, and then perform a shoot action through the hold wall. Um, so yeah, I mean, basically, like we just said,
Mhm.
I mean, regardless of range, he is getting 2 red, and 2 red. If it was just, hey, you make a hold wall token, it's like okay, but the fact
Yeah.
you get a shoot action on top of that, and then you can
Um,
do his shoot action again.
yeah, he's one of the three. It's two or three. I can't remember off the top of my head, but at least him and Mira. Oh yeah, sorry, three. Him, Mira, and Sledge are the only operators that can do 2 shoot actions on their turn. And I think for that reason alone, regardless of anything else, could put them in A or S tier.
Yeah.
Either one. I mean, just two
Yep.
shoot actions on a turn is good, no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yep, I agree. Um, Limited again, kind of positioning, but
Yeah.
um, this is kind of where you do it in a way where you know for a fact that someone is on the other side versus
Hmm.
just trying to hit a decoy token. But if you really need to figure something out, 2 reds, you're gonna find out if it's a decoy or not. You might waste one of the breaching torches, but you still get info.
Hmm.
Um, And if you can strategically use him where it's like, okay, I don't know quite where the decoy is at versus the other player or the actual person. So I'm going to use his ability to see if that's a decoy because if it's not, then I have another operator in position to actually attack the defender. But if it is, then that's 2 shots.
Yeah. And
Um,
he's a runner with Orange Destroy. So,
that's true. Yeah,
I
4
mean,
health again was another consideration of mine was that is almost a one shot.
yeah.
Which is kind of why when I was looking at it, I was like, this is really good. Oh, 4 health. That's not
Well, even
amazing.
if you're getting shot at through the hold wall token, you get light cover. So you're
Yeah,
probably going to be around cover,
yeah,
typically. And if you're leaning out behind the hold wall, you'll get heavy cover.
that's
So
true.
not as bad at first glance.
That's true. Um, so yeah, like I,
And I think his
I
gun is consistent. I mean,
it
you've
is
got 2 reds
consistent.
across all spreads. So,
That is true. That is true with Maverick. As another hard damage dealer. Where do we put him? Where would you put him? I feel like S is
so
too high,
yeah,
even
I
with
think S is too high. But because he's a 2 shooter, I put him at the low end of A because of
okay.
the two shooting actions possibility. The only reason he's low end of A is I think actually, to be honest, I actually don't think I've used him. Like I think he's really good and his potential's there. I just haven't actually played him yet. So I haven't physically used him, but I think he's really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can only bring 5, and
Yeah.
there's 30 to choose from.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's true. That's true. I think low end of A feels right. Okay, cool. That one was easy. Number 14. Very intriguing character that I'm trying to remember if she is how she is in the video game, and I don't think she is. She
Hmm.
might be, and that is Dokkaebi. So Dokkaebi, wave, the target operator receives a ping, and then vertical, this is why I was like, this could be really, really good, is you remove all pings from operators in the squad that are in a room containing the targeted space.
Hmm.
Um, I think that is to kind of represent the fact because if I remember in the video game, she put like bugs in people's phones that they had to kind of waste time to deal with, so they couldn't
Yeah.
move or shoot. I think that's supposed to represent them fiddling with their phone so they don't know where you're at anymore. Was my
Yeah, I think
thematic
so.
tie-in to the ability.
Yeah, the video game, she kind of reveals the enemy's position more than protects her ally's
That's what
position. But I
yeah.
think, I guess her ability would just be if she just pinged people, I think it'd just be too close to other characters. So that's
Hmm.
probably why they changed that up a
Yeah.
bit.
And don't get me wrong, I like this ability. I
Yeah.
like the change because there's another character we'll talk about later that isn't quite what I remember of the video game. But again, works here.
Hmm.
Most characters, 95% of them are pretty much like, yep, this is who they are. Uh,
Yeah.
so in this case, the fact that you are able to remove pings from operators in your squad, and it's all operators, which I guess also, oh yeah, it specifies your squad. I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
all operators? Never mind, put her down at the bottom with Ying. Um, can just be super good. Like you can
Yeah.
be a little bit more risky with them, like where you can put them in position just to get where they're pinged, but then it's like, oh, boom, I'm gonna now wipe all that so you don't get the benefit of the ping. Um, two uses of it. Uh, and or actually, that's just her innate ability, the use of the wave to ping on your end, which is
Hmm.
the way I use. We talked about a certain character on defense. You mentioned Pulse.
Pulse,
I
I mean, she has Pulse's ability there at the top.
exactly. Yep. Yep. To where it's a really good combo of like, okay, I'm gonna wave. There they are. The ringtone went off. Let's kill them.
Yeah.
She's super solid. It's not as fancy, as some of the other ones. Like it's not like ooh flashy, but I like
Yeah.
that defense. I like that defense ability on attack.
She is she fits in the Twitch camp for me, um, where I think she's good, but I haven't played her.
You just don't
I
pick
was
her.
Yeah, I just don't pick her. In fact, I actually want to pick her because I know I haven't played her yet.
Yeah.
My suspicion, and this could be totally unfounded because I haven't played her, is that I like her top ability. It's like Pulse. Her bottom ability seems high maintenance. I don't know when it would be useful because you'd have to save her for the
Mm-hmm.
second activation, and I mean, I feel like it's very, very situational, and that's why, and it's a little high maintenance to set up, and you might go through the wasting an action to remove a ping from all operators in a room, but the defense might not even have been planning to shoot them through walls or anything, so it
That
might not
is,
have even
yeah,
accomplished anything.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Um,
So
I do actually agree with you. Yeah, it is kind of one of those you're gonna want it
yeah,
whenever it happens, but then if it might not
exactly,
ever happen.
exactly.
But then you have pulse ability. If this was it, I feel like it would suck because for that very reason. But the fact that you can still use, because this vertical action doesn't, from my understanding, doesn't have this token here or this icon.
Hmm.
So this is just something she can do.
Yeah,
Like, and it doesn't cost one of her two
that's
uses.
it.
So she just
Yeah,
has
it
an
just costs
action
an
to just get
action.
rid of them. So you kind of have her sit in the back, which is what she does really kind of in the, because her dice
Hmm.
aren't amazing. So you just
Yeah,
have her be on support,
that's
which
true. I will say though, as another thing is her action that has no limits is a vertical action, which means she's upstairs. But if she's upstairs, she can't really watch a hatch or entry space really well because her short range gun is not great. You know what I mean? So it's the pros and cons thing again.
yeah, being upstairs is one thing that I do see the use for, but because it's like, well, all I do is guard this one area before, I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, you can come down at a different spot, which it's like one thing that's always weird about games like Rainbow Six Siege versus games like Overwatch, where it's like, hey, here's this very obvious support character. They
Yeah.
heal, like I know that means support. Or Six Siege is kind of difficult whenever everyone can die at the drop of a hat, and it's like, well, who's the support? Dokkaebi is a support character.
Yeah.
It's like she's not killing, but man, she's gonna hopefully prevent all my characters from being kind of blindsided, like you were talking about with Nokk.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, I'm gonna use her to get rid of the ping, so it's kind of like they never get one.
Yep. That's true. Yeah. And her long range gun is pretty good
It's
when you
not
can set
bad,
it up.
yeah.
Not bad. 4 dice is
So
always good.
I will say, even though I have them higher, I do agree with you that it can be high maintenance.
Hmm.
So I would probably put her at a high B
Yeah. It's a soft spot.
There we go. Okay. Cool. Cool. Now, here, oh, funny enough, here's the other character that I don't think is quite like they are in the video game. Um, and I'm so intrigued to know where you're gonna put them. Uh, and that is Lion.
Haha.
So
Okay.
funny enough, we were just talking about drones,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're like, ooh, drones. Uh, but I'm assuming, uh, because in the video game, I feel like Lion's attack thing was like it was like this wave, and if anyone was moving, it pinged them. So it forced everyone to stop if they didn't want to be pinged.
Yeah.
Here, not necessarily that, because it can't because there's not simultaneous movement. So this
Mm-hmm.
drone can move up to 10 spaces, which is huge, completing the scan, and then it kind of goes into a spot,
And it just stays there.
and it
Yeah.
just stays there, and it kind of blocks a spot. Or it not necessarily blocks a spot, but operators enter a space containing it now also get pinged. So it kind of does
Mm-hmm.
like a wave of just that one room. Um, so it kind of is very loosely tied to what she can do. Again, kind of the same thing with Twitch's thing where you have versatility on drones, but the fact that this one does a constant ping in one room, which can be huge in some maps, um, with a 10 movement with a complete scan. That's pretty solid info if almost everywhere. Now, granted, it can be destroyed, it can be shot, and it is electric, but I don't know. I like the idea of a 10 movement drone.
Where would you put it? I want to know before I tell you where I would put it. Like I know it's a little higher on your list, obviously, because of where you've
Hmm.
ranked it.
Um, on a game about information, I'd probably put her in A.
Okay.
Especially looking as now that we're looking at weapons, which I didn't really when I was ranking.
Great
Again,
weapons.
consistent weapons, nothing about coverage, blocking coverage,
Hmm.
almost, I mean, high value, consistent damage. Two
Yep.
uses of a constant ping, which is again huge. Uh, with a five health, I'd probably
Hmm.
put her in A.
Yeah, I it could go back and forth, honestly. I'm gonna put Lion in S, just
Oh, okay.
because well, oh sorry, I kicked a trash can. I I like drones, like I said. 10 movement drone is great.
Hmm.
When you'll hit this point in the game where as a defense player, you'll start mathing out, can they use a drone against me? And you'll kind of like be counting spaces. And I know this because I play against the person I play against the most, Jack, who's been in a lot of my videos. We were playing a game a couple months ago, and I pulled line for the first time, who he kind of thought was a little lame. And he had his guys positioned in such a way that I couldn't scan anything at the beginning of the game, except I had Lion. So I was able to move farther than he realized, and it stayed there, and it really annoyed him. And ever since then, he's kind of used line a lot, and then
Okay.
we've all been using him a lot. And the 10 movement is great. It just staying around is nice because if they don't want to get pinged, they have to waste an action to destroy it.
Hmm.
Even if it's easy to destroy, it's an action gone, which
Yeah.
is, in my opinion, a great use.
Which
So,
one thing that we haven't mentioned at all, which in case people are watching this and they're not aware, Six
mhm,
Siege, the board game, is on a timer.
yep,
Like, so whenever we're talking about wasting an action, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal because it's like, okay, yeah, you can just sit there and
yeah,
think. Not really. Even if you're generous with time, it's still time.
yeah,
You still have that psychological pressure. So having to quickly make that snap decision of like, I'm gonna use an action to destroy it.
yeah.
Um,
And then you find in later in the turn you needed another action to really fool yourself up. But I destroyed the drone, and like
yep,
now I can't Overwatch or I can't do
yep.
the gadget thing
Or
that I
yeah,
wanted to
or you
do.
you waste the time destroying it, and then before you can even complete your second action, you might run out of time.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Mhm.
oh, nope, you're done.
But yeah, but the 10 movement especially is just great because there's just
Hmm.
a lot of times where you're like, I really want to drone this area, but I'm one square away from reaching where I want from where my guy is. And Lion, you don't have to worry about that ever. You know,
Yeah,
because if you deploy it adjacent to you, you can think of it, it's almost like it's got 11 movement points, really.
that's true.
So yeah,
Yeah.
love Lion.
So I definitely agree. this is more kind of we're slowly creeping up on where I'm gonna start popping S's.
Nice. Okay, I'm excited.
So which, as you can clearly see, eventually you'll find out, but not necessarily. Like I don't have a whole lot of S tiers.
Mhm.
But Lion, yeah, I'll put with Twitch. I'll put right up there with Twitch.
Nice.
The
A good spot, I
two
think.
two drone peoples.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we are at number 12, which I am for some reason just blanking on what they do, even though I have them up here. Thatcher.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
Yeah, EMP grenades. This is a better Cali ability. And he has better guns.
Mhm.
And he has, never mind, I was gonna say he has more health, but I think he has the same. Um, like, uh, sorry, my phone just went off. I was like, it
You're
distracted
good.
me. Yeah, just a destroy action on all electronics in the room. And actually what I did do, so I mentioned I wasn't necessarily like comparing weapons or looking at, okay, who's good in what map.
Mhm.
What I did do is whenever something mentioned that it, stopped electronics or it stopped throwables, I counted how many there were. Because if it's like, oh,
Mhm.
it stops all throwables, well, there's 2 throwables. You
Yeah.
know, who cares? That would be like when you're obviously drafting. It's like, oh, you picked both throwable characters. That's who I'm going to pick to counter.
Yep.
Uh, but there are a lot of electronics in the
A
game.
lot. A
Why did
lot.
I minimized him? So for that reason alone, yeah, he's only getting 2, and it's a destroy yellow. But do you know of any off the top of your head, any electronics that aren't yellow?
Um, I actually can't. Oh, well, I mean, I think there's some like I think there might be some bulletproof cameras, I believe.
Bulletproof cameras.
That not all bulletproof cameras, but some. I think maybe Maestro and Malusi's gadgets are orange destroy. Maybe I
Okay.
don't quote me on that. Let me pull it up. But there's not a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So that that reason alone
mhm.
is, I mean, you just talked about how you mainly do a lot of gadget runs. I
Yep.
imagine Thatcher is just like, okay, well now most of your rooms are barren and all your setup is gone.
Yeah.
This is one
Let's
of the
see.
few. I know it's at 12. I'd put Thatcher in S.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. When we first started, I Thatcher was I think an auto pick for me. For that very reason, because it was just one of those things where he was the easiest person to use to get rid of cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things when you start getting better is you start positioning cameras in a spot where you don't want people to be able to just use the basic destroy action on on a camera, right?
Oh
So you
yeah.
position them around corners so they can't shoot the camera. And Thatcher will be like, okay, fine, well, I'll just throw a grenade in there and get rid of the camera that's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So no problem.
Yeah.
But especially if somebody does a gadget heavy setup, Thatcher's one of those that like, oh, you put 5 gadgets in there, all gone, one
Yeah,
action,
all of it.
all of it.
And now again, we haven't really talked about hard counters because then this video would be even longer than it's gonna
It's
be.
true.
But the fact that it's a throwable, there's a counter for that, which is, well, I mean,
Yep.
just sheer brilliance
Jaeger and
of the
Wamai would be the
game.
counters. Yep.
Yeah. But the fact also kind of what you were talking about is the fact that he's destroying a lot of gadgets, you now free up the actions of all your other operators. It's like
Yep.
now they're not having to take their time to destroy cameras or anything. So they can use their special abilities. They can do their Overwatch or shooting or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
So, um, again, this could also come to a thing where you might not get bang for your buck.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, this would only ever destroy one gadget, but the fact that you could still, it's like, well, that gadget is kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So,
It's so I put him higher in A tier instead of S tier. And
okay.
the reason being is early on, you S tier easily. I always pick Thatcher. As we've gone on, I've hit more situations where I've brought Thatcher and realized, okay, I'm not getting like you were saying, I'm not getting as much bang for my buck here with Thatcher. I think
Hmm.
even if you use him just to get rid of one camera that's around a corner, that's still a good use for him, which is why I put him high in A. Like
Yeah.
even if you're just getting rid of 1 or 2 cameras in a room, that's a great use for him. So he's still A.
Hmm.
But basically, what somebody can do, like if you pick that, if you're doing pick ban especially, which we do, so this also might affect my thought process on picking it up. If you pick Thatcher early in the pick ban phase, they can pick Wamai and Jaeger, and then they could just not bring a bunch of electronics. And
Yeah.
so you're kind of like, okay, I'll get rid of 2 cameras with him, right? And so then you feel like I didn't really use him. But if you pick him in a scenario where somebody has a lot of electronics that they're putting out, Thatcher's great. Or a lot of cameras, right? Thatcher's great for getting rid of those.
Right. Which, I mean, the maps do come with just default cameras placed and stuff. So it's not necessarily going to be for a to counter the opposing operators. It's like, well, your defensive room still has stuff. So you're most likely still destroying more than just one thing. It just might not be your opponent's specific things.
Exactly. Like I said, picking him just to get rid of cameras is not a bad reason to pick him at all, in my opinion. Yeah. By the way, I quickly looked through the roster. There weren't any orange electronic gadgets that I could see on the defensive side.
All right. I thought there weren't, but there are a lot of electronics.
Yeah, there are a lot of electronics. I didn't see any oranges.
Okay, cool. So that was number 12. Now this one's gonna be so I feel like this is gonna be like a fucking F tier for you.
Okay.
And I know this character is never. I think they were actually used in it was justification for me because in like lower rank for the video game or casual, no one played this character, but I thought she was super fun.
Okay.
And I actually think so. We've talked about a little bit about how these characters are not necessarily 1-to-1, and how you would use them in the video game is not how you use them in the board game. I think this character is actually a lot better in the board game because it's a little bit more tangible, and that is
I think
Amaru.
Yes, I thought so. Yeah.
I've said many times I suck ass at the video game, so I was just like I was like blitzing into the windows and they would just kill me, and I'm like, well, the zip line was fun, but she was actually relatively high originally, and she just basically was like just kind of kept. So she's an honorable mention if we were doing top 10s.
Yeah.
So she's out of 30 operators. I just think the fact that it has an upkeep, so it rotates. It takes a turn, so you can't just run around the whole map.
Yeah.
But when she moves into an entryway space, she can spend 1 movement point to relocate to any other free entryway space on the main floor, unless she's escorting the hostage. Which that makes sense. That movement versatility,
incredible.
Oh man, she's super support. Like
this is one of those examples of them taking a character from the video game who's like a meme character and making her great. Basically, in my opinion.
It blew my mind every time I was ranking and she just kept staying. Yeah, she was getting knocked at number 11, but I'm like, I think she's like really bad in the video game from what I remember. But in the board game positioning, her weapons looking are not horrible. But
especially if you're going to be using her as a flank person, and typically if you're flanking someone in entryway space, they're probably within short range. So you're probably going to get
true.
You're probably going to get that short range gun.
So that's really it. She's not like insanely complex. She's one of the few who does have like a charge ability, like a charge up ability. But there are times where it's like, oh, I've been pushing heavy on this bomb room that you have a lot. Oh, and now I'm just gonna pop her over to the other room with the bomb that you have no one over here for, and I'm gonna detonate it, or I'm gonna set the charge,
or I'm gonna pop in, kill somebody, and then go back outside so you can't respond. Just real quick. So where are you placing her on the tier list? I'm actually curious because my placement is funny. I have to justify it.
I can't put her in S just because, just for sheer principle. I'd put her at high A. She'd be my highest A right now. One, because I feel like she's kind of one of the more fun characters. Does that make sense? Like there's not a lot of wacky characters, but I like the zip line. Gives me some Pathfinder vibes from Apex. Right? It's zip line time, and then you're here and you're just like, well, because like the defense can only do so much. They can't necessarily. It's not simultaneous. So if you're able to be like, yeah, you thought I was going to be over here. Now they have to take a war on 2 fronts. They have to constantly think, well, at any time Amaru can.
And she's one of those, like, even in setup, You have to be like, oh, they brought Amaru. We have to completely change the way we deploy our
Yeah,
tokens because we don't want
yeah.
her to get like a quick and easy flank like on the first turn.
Yeah, and like how we've talked about some support characters or some characters that are like, okay, they're good with this operator, they're
Mhm.
good if you come with this group. She's gonna be that wild card. Yeah, she's kind of on her own. She doesn't provide anything inherently to the
Mhm.
group, but you're more psychological of like now your opponent is worried at any time that you might just all of a sudden be like, well, there's no way any of their operators can get on this side of the map. Oh,
Yep.
now they
Boom.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I lied. I lied S tier.
Do it. So okay, so I have to explain this because I agree with everything you said. I think she's a great character. I put her at high C tier. The reason
Okay.
I did in my head, I even relabeled my tier. C tier is like the situational operators.
Okay.
So like I think she's great and she totally changes how the defense has to set up. That being said, if the defense knows how to set up around her, they can kind of neuter her a little bit. So
Yeah.
if you're doing pick ban and you pick her early, they could easily kind of like shut her down pretty fast. Um,
But so I guess my counter to that, and you've
yeah.
played way more than I have,
Mhm.
if they're setting up to counter one character, then that
That's
means they're opening up the floor for everyone else.
totally agree.
Okay.
That's totally fair. Yeah. So, but it means you might not be getting as much mileage out of her and getting to
That's
zip
true.
around as much
You
as you
are
want.
still technically down
Yeah.
an operator, but at least
So
her guns are good.
if you go look at the first in-person playthrough video we did on Coastline, I brought Amaru and I picked her early, and Jack picked a couple of operators that closed down intraday spaces specifically, and
Hmm.
I never got to zipline with her, which is just
Oh, yeah. Which is
unfortunate.
like, well,
So
you're my fun
yeah,
character, and now you're
yeah.
kind of lame.
That being said, you play her and the defense does not play. She forces the defense to play around her, and the defense
Yeah.
does not play around her. You're going to clean house. So the
Yeah.
first
I
time
guess
I played against Amaru, I lost two operators on the first turn before they even got to activate.
but there's
So
also outside entryway spaces, so you can still
yeah,
hop like the map.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
so
Hmm.
I feel like they yeah, I do agree. I think making a tier of
She
situational is a good
yeah,
spot for your C
this is a
tier.
good way, a good example of how a tier list isn't saying this is good and this is bad. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like I think she's great, but like in my head, like she's that situational pick. Like she's the one like as we're because we always do pick ban. So obviously, if you're not doing pick ban, this is totally different.
Hmm.
But I see my enemy's team comp. If I look at my enemy's team comp and I notice they're not watching intraday spaces, Amaru. I know I'm gonna
Yeah.
like hardcore capitalize on that, right? And then she's really good. So
Yeah.
she's great. I think she's
She
awesome.
yeah, well good deal. Cause yeah, I don't know of many characters. She was the very first apparent one that I was like, I remember her never being picked in the video game, but here in the board game, she's really good.
Yeah,
So I
I
wonder,
think so too.
I'm curious if there are other characters that are like that. Okay, finally, my top 10 that I had on ranking that is not again reflecting really on this. This is
Hmm.
actually my main in the
Okay.
video game. Um,
Oh,
and
the
I
next
think,
operator.
huh?
The next operator is your main.
Yes, number 10. This is the one I almost always pick. And unless I'm forgetting the abilities of the other nine, this is one of the best. This is the best version of the AoE um, damage, and that is Fuse.
Okay, interesting.
Um, so funny enough, I couldn't remember because I played Fuse last time, and I forgot in the video game Fuse has a shield.
Yep.
Uh,
What does he?
unless they nerfed him, I thought he had a shield because he can't run, and I remember him being super slow. I thought maybe he didn't.
I don't think he did.
I
Maybe
don't.
early on. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
Uh, but we mentioned so Fuse, Gridlock, and someone else
Hmm.
had 6 health. Um, I could because he's holding it right here in the picture. Isn't that a shield?
Maybe I don't remember.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So
I don't
I
know.
thought he
Yeah.
did. So I was always wonder. I was like, man, does he not have that little permanent light, you know, light cover? But anyway, so yeah, cluster charges does pretty much exactly what Kali does.
Hmm.
And it also damages operators in the room.
Yeah.
So deployable, you get to, I mean, cluster charges in the video game, he popped it on the thing and then he pulled it and it shot into the room. In the video game, it's early kills, potential early kills.
Hmm.
But yeah,
In a video
deployable,
game, it's a potential hostage kill.
that is also true. Yeah, you don't really pick him if you're doing hostage. Uh, but you get to do the destroy action on all gadgets in the room, except always visible. And operators in the target room sustain a damage, or sustain a yellow dive damage. So again, it could be nothing. It most likely will not be, but at least the destroy action is guaranteed. However, you can do it in a room where people have completely put in a bunch of decoy tokens.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I'm gonna find out where you're at. Like,
Do
two
a bunch of
charges.
chip damage, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the best ability of kind of an AoE type of ability. Gets 2 uses out of it, which again, how I use them in the video game, it's early info. Like when you're attacking, the earliest info you can get, in my opinion, the better, because if you don't get info, you don't know where to go in. So you're running in blind, which in a game like Six Siege could just kill you.
Yeah.
So you position him in a spot because you get to see the defensive layout. So you get to start him where you can utilize him right off the bat. And you get to see mute things where it's like, okay, like it's not going to be countered here. It's not a throwable, so it's not getting stopped that way.
Yep.
Looking at his weapons are really good.
Medium long range is great.
Yep, and he has 6 health, which is huge. He can't run, but you're not using him to run.
Yeah.
He's a slow entryway. He gives information to your other operators so they can rush in. And
yeah, he's kind of like an anchor on the outside almost. A little bit like Glaz in that way.
Yep. So Fuze has been my main. I really like him. But funny enough, I actually would put him at high A.
Okay. Interesting.
So Amaru is in my heart an S. She's actually probably high A as well. He would definitely be an S if this was that red damage. If it was guaranteed 1 red, like 1 damage.
If the die was red, so this is just this will be one of those funny scenarios of 2 opposite players. I think if the die was red, oh for sure.
Okay, that's true.
S tier. Yeah. Fuze is weird. Like his ability is good, his gun is good. Every time I use him, and also when I have my friends have used him, they find the yellow die disappointing. And the fact that it doesn't destroy cameras, basically. Because cameras are the most common gadget in a room, usually. So you can't destroy those. And like what you said is great. Like you can use it to get early damage on a round. You can use it to flip tokens if you roll damage on the yellow die, which is the most unreliable die in the game. So, and you've only got 2 uses.
Okay,
so when you use one of his uses, and I mean, I've had friends use him where I've had 3 tokens in a room. He's like, hey, I'm going to use Fuze. And I'm like, man, I'm about to take a bunch of damage on multiple guys. And he rolls blanks on all of them. And he's just like, like that was a waste, right? And I didn't even destroy any cameras.
I guess I never, because I did it where you roll the yellow for every single operator.
Oh, no, I believe you're supposed to roll 1 for
You roll
each.
once? Okay, so I would do, because thematically, so cluster charges like shoot out and like kind of bounce all over the room. Thematically, if you roll a blank on one operator, they were in a position where it didn't hit them, but another operator, it did. So that might be, and I could not be following the rules right, but to me that makes more thematic sense, where it's the way it bounced, if I hit a token for the 2 damage, the cluster bomb landed
right
where
next
they're
to
at.
Yeah. For each token, you'll roll a die until you've either damaged some or not. So but it's still risk.
It is. It is. So it's like, for me, it's like kind of averages, where it's like I might not hit every token in this room, but I'm probably going to hit some.
Yeah. It's one of those where when you read it, at least in the games I've played and my friends play, they always think it'll do more than it ends up doing. If that makes sense.
I can see
in practice, it never quite hits the way people want it to. So that's why I put it in my D tier, which is a rarely play. Like I've had times where Fuze is awesome, but then I'd say 7 times out of 10, he kind of like is like a little whimper. Like, oh, I guess I did 1 damage on that token.
It's so funny, that you say that, because whenever we were talking about making this list, I was wondering how much of, that's why I asked, do you play the video game?
Yeah.
I was wondering how much of video game experience translates to board game, because everything you said is 100% correct. Even in the video game, you
That's
pop
true.
a cluster and it doesn't do shit, and you're
Yeah.
like, great. But well, in the video game, that's better because it's well, you could hope that okay, no one was in that room, but it
Yeah.
could have also just not hit
Or in the video
anyone.
game, if you shoot it, even if it doesn't damage, it might get somebody to run out of a room and be vulnerable.
Exactly.
In the board game, that doesn't really happen.
That is true. So, but everything it's like, yep, you could roll a 2 on every single operator
Yeah.
and destroy every single gadget and get that amazing like gameplay of like, hey, or even rolling a 1 where it's like 1 damage and now I know if it's a decoy or not. But you could also get nothing.
Yeah.
So
I think he's one of those. He's kind of like Thatcher. That's just like I'm gonna do a Thatcher, except he doesn't destroy cameras, so not like Thatcher. But like if somebody
mhm.
loads up on non-camera gadgets, that's when you would pick Fuze. Oh, he's picked a bunch of non-camera gadgets. I pick Fuze, and I think the damage is just one of those like if I get damage, it's a nice little bonus. But
Mhm.
you just have to resign yourself like I'm
Yeah.
probably just not gonna get damage and just
He's
be okay
he's
with
more
that.
wacky, and I know why it's yellow because it is random. It's just a cluster in the room. So
Yeah, it's a
I
cluster.
attribute him a lot to theme versus if it was orange, that
Yeah.
would be it would probably feel better because you can still get a miss, but it'd be a little bit too powerful if it's like, hey,
Yeah.
everything in this room I get guaranteed damage, and a red
Yeah.
would be
A
broken.
red would be ridiculous. No red.
Um,
Can we just say though, I'm glad that you can't damage the hostage with Fuse in the board game. I've
oh,
seen
you
people
can't?
say,
I didn't
yeah,
know
you
you could.
can't. No, no, no. Yeah, it does not damage the
Oh, it just says
hostage.
operators. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
and so I just listen. I've seen people in the Discord say they want to homebrew Fuse being able to have a risk of killing the hostage. I think that's stupid. I'm glad they took that out.
Yeah, I guess in the board game you you could see where the hostage is, so you wouldn't
Yeah.
ever deploy it in there anyway versus a
Well,
video game.
yeah, and people have homebrewed like, what if we put in a risk that you might kill the hostage? And it's like, okay, we set up this game, we have a game night, we put all out, but round one, oh, I rolled the
Yeah,
3 on the orange, like, and now I just lost. It's like, come on, I'm not gonna. That's ridiculous.
technically I won. There is no more hostage. I
Yeah,
killed him.
I
So
guess that's true.
where's your leverage now?
There
Now
you
we can
go.
kill you guys without feeling bad.
But I'm glad you can use them when you play hostage without that risk. Personally,
That is nice. And again, like I agree with you with the yellow die here. I like him high one because again he's my main, but a 6 health attacker is good with
hmm
pretty good
for
mid
sure.
range.
Yeah, you can anchor him like Glaz on long angles, and he's really good.
hmm
He can shred people.
And the only thing that counters is like the electric thing versus throwables or anything like
Yep.
that. Um, so that's my number 10. Number 9, which as from what I've gathered of what we were talking about, is probably gonna be S tier for you.
Oh, okay.
And that I'd be surprised if he wasn't. And
Okay.
that is Sledge.
Yeah.
Sledge is not higher for me because last time I played him, I misplayed him and
hmm
he died.
That's yep.
I misread that you can shoot in a space adjacent to your position,
Yeah.
which I thought he could just breach and shoot. And
Nope.
so
It's got to be adjacent.
there was no one next to him, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I already got info, so I can't take this back. And then he died.
hmm
Um, so yes, that is. I mean, he's still out of 30. He's in the top 10.
hmm
Getting a deployable, destroying, doing an orange destroy to then get a free move and get a potential surprise shot and 3 uses out of it.
Uh,
And
consider
his guns are
two.
good.
Consider two. If you're doing the shoot action in his action, you are adjacent, which means you're rolling the 4 dice, which is basically an automatic kill. Like
Oh, yeah. Yep, I
you'd have to
see.
roll blank on the yellow, the orange, and just ones on the reds, which is highly unlikely with
Yeah,
that
which
die spread.
if I remember some of your videos, you have really bad luck with
Yeah,
die
I do have
rolling.
bad luck. I do have bad luck. But like with this roll with Sledge, it's as close to a guaranteed kill as you can get at short
It
range.
is. He would be higher if it wasn't. He is situational. Like
Yeah,
now, granted, he's not so situational where you're getting nothing out of it. You're still getting a destroy and a move.
potentially 2 destroys usually
Uh,
because you can either shoot or destroy.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're
in that
correct.
second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just smashing through walls.
Hmm.
Yeah, he is a monster. So even though he's number 9 in my ranking, Sledge is S tier for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm putting Sledge in S tier. He's just, firstly, I
One, he's a
mean,
badass.
he
Like that's
is.
fucking
He's
cool.
on the cover of the game, so he's got to come for something, right? Like he's just so he's one of those that he's just so easy.
Hmm
He destroys things.
Just
He
make sure
destroys
you
things
read
and
that
he
even it's
shoots.
bold in
Yeah.
one space adjacent to your new position.
Yeah.
Make sure you read that. Otherwise, you have him
He
smash through a wall and then get
yeah.
gunned down.
Even if the defense position super optimally and you never got to do that shoot, that's fine because he does a lot of destroying. So he clears paths. His gun is incredible. He's got a basic orange, even if you run out of his gadget, which you're probably not gonna. His
Hmm
when you use his gadget, you can go through a soft wall, so it lets you do some trickery thing there.
He has
Um,
5 health,
Five
like
health.
which is
The
good.
moment someone positions next to a soft wall or window, Sledge can just pop in and shoot them before they can do anything. And because that's part of his action, he can do two shoot actions on his turn. So
Yep,
even in this scenario here, where you get up adjacent to somebody with the action and you whiff, which is super rare, you just shoot him again. You're dead.
that's true. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
like
no
you are
problem.
guaranteed to kill someone. Which I'm curious because you've played on more maps than I have, and
Yeah.
on probably you played them multiple times. Are
Mhm.
there maps where he's not actually good? Where it's like, yeah, I guess I'll destroy this wall, but I don't really need to. Are there
Maybe
maps where Hibana or Ash is actually your better breacher?
uh, that's hard.
Okay.
I don't know. I
I'd say
generally,
no. I would
yeah,
probably say no. He's probably versatile in every single
he's
map, but I
versatile
don't
enough
know.
that he's just generally very good no matter
Yeah.
what. Maybe Bank, but Bank is just generally hard to attack
Yeah.
anyways, because that's just a
Which
very defender sided map. But
yes,
no,
which is applicable to the video game. There are
yeah,
maps that are very which
yeah.
I actually like.
Orange
Um,
destruction generally is typically just always very good, and he does a lot of orange destruction. So,
yeah.
and his gun is good.
hmm
He's got everything, you know.
hmm Yep.
So,
I agree. I agree.
and his
Um,
mini looks awesome. The hammer.
that is true. Yeah, he is definitely S tier.
Yeah, I put him right under Buck on my list. He's just easy. He's one of those easy ones.
He
Like you know
is
what he
easy.
does.
3 uses out of it too. That
Yeah, which
that
is
is
crazy.
there's just no walls left alive. Now, to be fair, because um this is one of those instances where you're actually probably trading. Like he's
Yeah.
probably popping in, killing someone, and then he's dying.
True. I would say personally, I would try and play him where I'm not trading him.
I know. I'm
Unless we're
just
talking about the very end of the game. But
like
yeah, I know
because of
what you
how
mean.
good he is, he's probably gonna be like, oh, you breached in, yeah, you killed one of my guys. Now I'm going out of my way
Yeah.
to get rid of him.
People breathe a sigh of relief when they kill Sledge. So he's one of those.
Oh,
He's like,
thank God, a
oh,
human being has been
yeah.
murdered.
Because everybody's vulnerable around windows, walls,
Hmm
doors. He can do that thing. He can use his thing down entryway spaces too if people aren't careful. So I mean, he's just good. Not
Yeah,
Buck's entryway spaces, but regular entryway spaces.
gotcha. Yeah, so I agree. We agree there.
Yeah.
Number 8. Number 8. This one is also super fun, and that is IQ.
Yep.
So again, uh, with the kind of again a wave or vertical destroy action on target electronics. That's an action.
Yep.
However, the reason why she's so high for me is actually not her action, but her reaction.
Exactly. Yes.
And this was another instance where I was like, how many effects cost extra actions? I think it's
Many.
like 6 or 7. There are quite a bit,
Yeah.
and
It's like
they
8 maybe.
are they. It was a lot, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was enough that I was like, if it was like 3 or 4, it's like okay, yeah, that's still pretty good. But forcing defensive effects that force you to basically not get your ability, and
Yep.
if you want your ability, that's all you're doing. Having her ignore that is
Incredible.
super good.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. This is something we talk about why she's so good is as a defense player, one of my favorite team compositions is to do an all reaction team composition. So all trappers, right?
Oh
Capcan,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Capcan Frost, Goyo, Legion, Ella. You stack up those reactions where it either does damage or they have to lose an action. IQ is just a hard counter to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like so
Mm-hmm.
she
Now I
that's
guess
why I think she's
you only get
good.
to do it twice.
But that's a lot.
It no, I know.
Yeah.
She'd probably be in top three if she had like three uses out of it.
Oh man, that'd be crazy.
But the fact is you play her around that reaction.
Yep.
Um, and so she just is like, yeah, I'm not affected by this. I'm gonna use this to ignore that special
Yeah.
effect. And
She's
her
one of
guns
those
aren't
right out of if
amazing.
you yeah, it's
Like,
not amazing, but
and she has four health, which is also why she's not higher. Still
yeah.
again top 10, but
So if you're just playing out of the core box, she's even more powerful in my opinion. Because
hmm
sure, you get all the expansions in there and you can do what I do where I like to stack trappers. But there was a while where we just had it for the core box, and the only person that had an ability that cost extra actions was Jaeger, where he can block your throwable or you spend an action. And it just became one of those scenarios where I pick Jaeger, okay, well I pick IQ. And you would use Thatcher to destroy electronics, and you would just save IQ to just cancel every time Jaeger tried to use his ability.
yeah.
So she's less powerful if somebody has multiple characters like this. But if they pick like, oh, I'm just gonna pick just Capkin or just Jaeger, and you just pick IQ, you're just like, cool, I'm just nullifying that
hmm
trap. Like you're never gonna get to use it. And so
Yeah.
it's really powerful because of
Yeah,
that.
it would be pretty shit if it only affected her, but the fact that it affects another operator in her squad
Oh,
is
I
is
know.
so good. And it's cool because her how she works in the video game, she has like this wrist thing that sees through walls. So in the board game, it's like she knew about that gadget. So
Yep.
it was kind of like taking the effect of communicating, hey, there's a mute drone or whatever it might be. There's a cap can thing.
Yeah. And they
Uh,
like destroyed it. Yeah,
yep,
after she pointed out.
yep. It's so overall, she is this high up mainly for that reaction.
Hmm.
Like, cause yeah, I mean she has a weaker wave or vertical of destroying a of electronic. Yeah, it might be situational, could be useful. Her guns aren't that great. She has four health. She has a weaker destroy. She can move quick,
Hmm.
but that reaction is just too good.
Yep. It's good.
So now, even with that being said, I'd still probably put her at high A.
Yeah, I put her middle A, but I might even drop her into B, just because she's good. But if you're using her just to destroy electronics, I think there are others that do better.
Yeah.
I pick her for the second ability, the reaction.
hmm
In that case, you pick her in the scenario where they only bring one or two of those kinds of operators.
That is true. Um, yeah, let's put her right behind Twitch and Lion. That feels
It's probably
good.
a good spot. Yeah.
And I know you don't like Fuse, but we'll keep Fuse a high A.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7. I have a feeling you hate this character.
Okay.
Just going on a feeling, going on a hard feeling, but I love being a troll and I love being an asshole, and that puts Montagne or Montagne, whatever,
Hmm.
at number 7.
I just call him Monty.
Monty, yeah. Um, there are some characters that I was watching Six Siege videos on, and uh, I did not know Cade was pronounced Kaid.
Yep.
I'm like,
Kaid.
ooh, or Nokk. Someone was saying Nokk
Yeah, or Nook, I
or
think. I don't
Nook, yeah, and
know.
I'm like, okay, well,
Weird.
so to be fair, this guy is banned every time.
Yeah.
Not maybe not because in the board game, but in the video game, he is always banned
Yeah.
because
For good reason.
for good reason. Not only does he have 6 health, he has an innate always light defense, and if he has multiple sources, he cancels 4 hits, and he can provide protection to your other operators. Um, this dude is
He's literally a tank.
he's a tank, and he sucks. He like no matter he does nothing. His guns suck. He's
Yep.
never doing damage,
Yep.
but
He doesn't have destroy.
he doesn't have he can't run. Like he is just there to survive. And in the last game I played, where I had 3 of my operators get dropped, like
Hmm.
pretty much at the beginning of the game, I won with him and another character that is obviously higher on this list
Yeah.
because he could not die.
Yep. Pretty much. I think you're right on the money. He sucks, but he doesn't. It's so funny. His gun, not great. Let's be honest, especially
Yeah.
that 7+ range. Terrible, terrible gun. He's got that revolver. That's it. He's got that little pistol.
Yeah.
Um, but just not dying. I played a game a couple of ago on Bank with him, and he got shot at. Like this is very rare in 6 Siege. Typically, I'd say on average, a character dies at most in 3 shots, but usually if they're at the second time they're shot, they usually die around then, right? Monty got shot at like 7 or 8 times before he went down, just
Yeah.
because he had canceled 4 hits, which is really good, you know?
Yeah, it's disgusting. And he was being used in that video I was watching with like the pro players.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is Montagne is your support. Now in the board game, he's not necessarily that because
Mhm.
in the video game, you use him for info. You keep him alive and hey, by the way, you just communicate where people are at because he's
Yeah.
not dying. But in this case, he's support in the sense that it's one, an extra body, two, he can still overwatch. Like that's still not horrible to have
Yeah.
him pull up in a room, which is actually how I survived while I deployed or detonated the bomb. Um, but yeah, you have a high profile character that is kind of how your squad is centered around. You keep Montagne next to him, keep him alive.
Yep. He's one of those you always have to have his gadget activated for him to be worth anything, obviously. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's good. You pair him with other people, they hide behind him.
I mean
So
he has an
they're hiding
innate.
the heavy wall.
He has an. If he was just 6 health, I think he would actually. But the fact that he also has a permanent light shield.
Yeah. What
Um,
that means, because he has a permanent light shield, his ability where if he has multiple sources of protection, what that means is if he has one source of protection, because he always has the shield. So
mhm.
as long as he's behind anything, he gets to cancel 4 hits.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, some of the best dice that we've seen where it's like 2 red and 2 orange and a yellow. It's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
he's a pretty good counter to Sledge. Oh, you're
Hmm.
gonna shoot Montaigne twice? Okay. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're probably doing damage to him, but you're probably not killing him.
No. Which
Um,
is like we talked about Blackbeard, is that's a really pesky thing for the defense.
it really is. So it's so weird because in my ranking he's at 7, and that is
Yeah.
more for personal play style because
Yeah.
I find I'm like I'm just gonna be an asshole this whole time. But here's honestly where I'm thinking. Is this him?
Yeah.
I'm thinking C.
That's fair. I think I put him right in the middle of B. I think he's a solid character.
I think B is fine. If communication mattered
Yeah.
in the board game, I'd put him at B, but because it's all pretty much open knowledge,
Yeah.
you lose that element of support. Even when he was super clutch and he never died,
Yeah.
I do think that, and because it is a recharge upkeep ability, so he's not
Yeah.
always having his deployed shield.
I think he's good on some of those maps that can be sometimes a little bit harder to penetrate as the attacker, like Bank,
Hmm.
where you can hide behind him. I think those are the good situations
Where
to
would
be.
you put him in the Dokkaebi, Blackbeard, Kali, Glaz, Capitao, Ace, Ash, Thermite, and Gridlock? Where would you put him
Like
like
in that B tier,
on my B tier?
he's probably right there along with Blackbeard because I feel like they're kind of similar in that
Yeah,
way. You know what I mean?
yeah. You know what?
And I might put him above Blackbeard a little bit.
I like him. I like him as a troll character. He's
Yeah,
never
he's fun.
played. He's always banned.
Yeah,
Um, since I did that dual combo with him, my friend has never let me do it again.
yeah. No, he's a fun character to play.
Okay. Number 6. Let's just pull him up. Right.
Getting down to the nitty gritty.
We are right
Yes.
there. It's a Jackal. So this is as close as they possibly could have gotten to how he works in the video game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not possible. Because I know in the video game there's like different colors of footprints. But
Mhm.
so just straight up, operators moving into the upper floor area get pinged. Moving down get pinged because he has this eye thing where he can actually see through walls.
Mhm.
But unless I'm mistaken, he's the only one that can actually shoot in vertical rooms.
Yep.
Yeah, from a vertical room or from your upper floor area, you perform a shoot action targeting a located in the opposing upper floor area. So you don't even have
Mhm.
to contention for those other spots.
Nope. You
he
just
can
shoot.
free up that spot, not even having to trade. I guess that's the only instance of trading you could potentially when you're contention for upper floor spots.
Yeah.
He could pop in and just hopefully kill an operator that's up there, which now frees up a spot for
Even just chip damage is good.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, which actually makes it if you are gonna contention for it, it makes it less likely for you to lose that trade off.
Yep.
Um, he's just so solid.
His gun
Uh,
is great. He's 5 health, orange destroy, 2 run. He's got 3 uses of that gadget.
he does.
The locating one is just automatic. It doesn't even cost a
Yeah,
reaction or anything. It
very
happens every
very
time.
rare passive.
It's an all game passive ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jackal, even though he's at 7 for me, is definitely S tier.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
so I'd probably put him at high. He'd probably be the highest S tier for me right now.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny. Like I think he's great, but he's another. I've played him, I think maybe twice, and every time I played him, I'm like, man, this guy's awesome. For some reason, I still end up picking other players
it's like God,
sometimes.
I'll guarantee win with Jackal. Anyway, put him
Yeah,
aside.
he's just one of those because we play through the upper floor. The upper floor game is a big deal, and he just changes it completely. And
Mhm.
you know, it's just one of those
Yeah,
annoying things. Like
because
if somebody
again,
moves,
his hard counter or psychological counter is okay. Well, I'm just not going to go in the upper floor.
yeah,
Okay, great.
that's
Stay
true.
down here with
That's
me then.
great. No, that's what I'm saying. That's why he's so good. Like anywhere somebody moves between the floor, Jackal can shoot them. So they might just so it's the scenario where Jackal's alive. Players
Hmm.
will sometimes just be like, "Well, I'm just not going to switch. People are going to stay upstairs and they're going to stick up there, or they're just going to stay downstairs," which is awesome. That's what you want.
Yeah. Are there rooms that don't have the arrows but have entryway points?
Yeah, some of them.
Okay.
It
I
changes
thought there
from
were.
map to map
Yeah, I
how the
couldn't think
rooms
of
are set
anything
up.
off the top of my head. So it's like, so they in that instance where it's like he might not be able to get them while they're upstairs, they can because he
Yeah,
might not be in a room that he can use it, but
but he can
that's
always move
he
to a
can always
room where he can shoot
exactly
someone.
he
That's
could
the
yeah
thing. Like,
yeah
yeah,
no I know I'm trying to find ways to be that devil's advocate where it's like how can we counter this?
I don't. He's just good, man. I think
He is
honestly.
definitely a main. He's always banned.
Yeah. I mean, the only counter to this is like with the way Nokk is on the attack, Vigil on the defense never gets located. So like
That's
one of the
true.
few counters, but like, you know,
Is yeah vigil, which is huge. But that's again the great thing about this game is you have counters for everything.
mhm.
Um, some are just easier than others.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't need to labor on Jackal anymore. Everyone knows he's good.
he's great.
So number 6, right? Damn it, there it is. Number 6. Here we go. Here we go. I'm very intrigued where this was a main staple where that people were using in the video, and it made me feel good because this was also kind of a main for me,
Mhm.
and that is Blitz.
Yeah.
Um, this is actually a better ability than the video game because
Yep.
this hits all operators. Now again, funny enough, I have Ying at the bottom,
Hmm.
because uh it affects all operators,
Yeah.
and but I don't have Blitz at the bottom for that same reason. Um and I'm just finding out that I'm a hypocrite for that very reason.
I mean, there are
Uh,
differences between Blitz and Ying.
there
Like,
are. Let's actually
if you
pull
want to pull
up.
her up,
I
we can talk
am.
about the differences with them.
Yeah. Ying right there. Boom. Okay.
So the first one is Ying's gun is a little bit better.
Hmm.
But Blitz always rolls 4 dice, which is not bad.
Yes. Yep.
Blitz has a shield,
Yep.
but Ying doesn't. So Ying can do vertical, and Blitz can't.
Yep.
And Blitz is electronic, and hers isn't. So and hers can go through a light wall or barricade, and his
That's
can.
true.
So they do the same thing. They each have pros and cons.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
what's so fascinating about them.
And I think it comes down to kind of like where you were talking about how you put certain people in D or you just never. Um, I always play Blitz. Like
Yeah.
I like Blitz as a character. Um, like it, and I think it's the longevity, like the fact that just an innate light shield, a flash stun, on operators, and I've played Blitz more.
Hmm.
And just the because I value keeping my operators alive.
As you should.
As everyone should.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be going into a game of this where you're like, okay, if this person dies, I don't really care. It's like, well, why'd you pick them?
Yeah.
So Blitz is able to stick around and kind of be a hard attacker, like how you play him in the video game. You rush him in because you know even if they're overwatching, I'm getting some shield, and then I flash everyone.
Yep.
So he's like the first one in, and then everyone else comes in. And it's like, okay, no matter what you're doing, you're rolling 2 yellow.
Yep. I love Blitz. But I put him, to be honest, I put him equal with Ying. For me, they both go up in A, right around the same
Okay.
spot. It just kind of depends on what flavor of stun you want, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
I
for
do.
them.
I am gonna have to make an audible though, because I can't
Yeah, but
rightfully put
that is
Blitz
fair.
up at A. And I think again it's because I main Blitz.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. His shield is awesome. Love it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put Blitz.
And he's a good combo with Buck. Buck opens a hold ceiling token. You flash everyone down that hold ceiling token with Blitz.
That's true. That's true. Um, yeah, I am gonna put Blitz in A. Funny enough, again, even though they're on my ranking, he's higher than Montagne.
Yeah.
That they were the duo that I had. It was Blitz and Montagne,
Mhm.
and uh, he's like, yeah, that's never happening again. Um, so let's put Blitz. I like him better in IQ. I'm gonna put Blitz right at the top of A. I like him better in
Okay.
Fuze. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna audible Ying to a B. Just
Oh,
because
poor
that's,
Hibana.
huh?
I said poor Hibana. All alone.
But Hibana, to be fair, that one I can't audible because literally we've seen so many other characters that do red destruction
Yeah,
that
that's true.
are also have more.
That comes down to there are 4 hard breachers. Just which ones do you like? Which ones do you don't? It's just
Exactly.
it can be different for everybody.
Exactly. Okay, number 4. Well, there's only 4 characters left, so now it
Hmm.
just comes down to where you think I'm putting them. So number 4 is
I'm assuming these are all going A or S for you.
yes. I
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if I didn't put them up there. Number 4 is Flores.
Yeah.
I imagine this will also be an ARS for you because you mentioned you love drones.
Yes.
This is basically a kamikaze drone.
Yep.
Just one, it also gets the scan. So it's a drone that gets a scan, does a orange destroy action in the space where it ends its movement and in all spaces adjacent to it, and does an AoE orange die of damage.
Yep.
Like doesn't destroy or no, it does destroy whatever's just next to it.
Hmm.
Uh, after also getting a scan.
Yep. No notes. Great. S tier. Incredible.
Yep.
The only thing, his short range gun is kind of meh, but even as far as meh short range guns go, it's not that bad either.
It really
Orange and
isn't.
red.
You're pretty much guaranteed at least some damage.
Yeah.
I'm
It's got
trying
an
to
orange
remember.
destroy, basically. No, S tier for sure for me. And another great combo with Buck, by the way. You open up a whole ceiling token,
You're right.
you drop a Flores drone down to do a bunch of destroys, damage a bunch of operators that they thought they were safe because they're in the middle of the map, but Buck and Flores just counter them right in.
That's a good point. So fun fact,
Dirty
so he's number
combo.
4 here. He was actually still number 6 when I was ranking all of them.
Oh,
Like
interesting. Yeah,
he
he's
was
that
he was
good.
always high up. I thought he wasn't for some reason, but I think I was yeah, he was number 6. So I agree, like S tier.
Yeah. I put him under Sledge just because I think they're both great, but Sledge also does a bunch of destroying. But if he's dealing damage to an operator, he's definitely going to kill them with his gun. I think that was kind of my
That's
justification, but
okay.
they're
Okay.
both really good at doing orange
Yeah,
destroy.
I'm putting him under Buck. You have sold me on Buck. That
Yeah,
that was a misuse on my part.
Buck is a game changer.
Yeah. So with Flores, I like the safe distance damage versus
Yeah.
Sledge. You have to get up close and personal
Hmm.
to get that. So I'll put Flores above.
Yeah,
So
I think that
then
was totally fair.
I am very curious because you've mentioned this operator quite a few times, but not it all to me it sounded like not in a favorable way. I imagine this character is going to be in your C tier of situational, but from my
Okay.
understanding, I value it super high. So my number 3 is Nomad.
Yeah.
Forcibly being able to move an operator, taking them out of leaning,
Mm-hmm.
to me is, in my opinion, one of the best support abilities. One, because you keep their orientation and any status marker. So from my understanding, if they're overwatching, they keep the overwatch, right?
Yes. Yep.
However, people meticulously, in my experience, are meticulous about how they're overwatching. So just popping them one space can allow for flanking. It
Mm-hmm.
can allow for you overwatching, getting them in position. It could allow for being affected by other operators on your team. Like you mentioned with Capitao, of like, okay, like you're gonna get hit by the fire, and now I'm gonna force you to move again.
Yeah. Get hit by the
It-
fire again.
I just think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you might think very highly of Nomad, but whenever you've
Mm-hmm.
mentioned her as kind of a support character, it's always been kind of like and she's here.
Yeah. Nomad to me is frustrating because I look at it and I agree. Like I agree with what you're saying. She's got great stats. Orange Destroy, awesome. 5 health,
hmm
great. Her gun, super good. Short, medium range, great
Especially
stuff.
if you can the yeah 4 to 6, where it's like, oh, you have cover.
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna move you out of the way.
yeah, exactly. Being able to move out of cover, yeah. She's got 3 uses of action. That's great. I've I've played her a couple times. I have just never been able to find up time for her ability to work. It's not like I'm waiting for the
Okay.
perfect time to use her ability. I just can't find a time. Like every time I brought her, I've never used it. There's just never been a time where
Yeah.
it's been useful for me. And I've talked about this. We've talked about this a lot. Like in my head, I don't know where you'd have a situation where you can obviously see someone to be able to use your throwable on them, but
hmm
why would that be more beneficial than just shooting them? And that's kind of you know what I mean? So
Right.
that's why I put her in situational. I think you pretty much pegged exactly how I thought about her. She's situational, and I've never been able to find the situation.
Yeah.
So
To me, the way I've been playing her is I actually build around her. She comes
yes.
off as if she's support, because it's like, well, all I'm doing is moving, but it's like, well, you want to you disrupt people's plans by pushing them out of the way, because it's like, well, I'm overwatching this room. Okay, well, now I'm actually going to move you to where you're
Yeah.
overwatching less, so I can come around and you don't get a reaction.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like she's a support that you want to actually support her.
Yeah, it's weird, right? That's kind of what I've understood because we've been talking to JB a little about it, and that's kind of what he said is that she's someone you build a team around.
Yeah.
And I think I've just must have been using it wrong, kind
Yeah.
of.
And again,
Is
this
my
we're now in the echelon of kind of my personal play style,
yeah,
which where this was number 3. So I mean, I put Nomad in S. I
that's fair.
really like this ability. It's kind of like a Rumi a little bit, where she's wacky. She's a
Yeah,
wacky operator.
she's very
Um,
weird. Yeah,
I'm gonna put her under Jackal. Uh,
I would love to play against you sometime against a Nomad squad to see how you use her. Honestly,
okay, okay.
we should do a
Well,
game sometime.
yeah, yeah, we should. I mean, I live in Missouri, so do a physical.
It's
Just
true.
uh, I've no. What state are you in?
Tennessee.
We're not that far away from
No,
each other. That's a day trip. We'll just make a
it's
six
true.
siege day trip.
Do you
We
have
play one game and we
TTS?
hate each other. We're like, fuck you. Just have a meltdown.
It's all fun and games until you lose.
Well, here's the problem though, because I just mentioned or Nomad you build around, you kill her. It's like,
Yeah, she's
great.
the linchpin. Yeah.
Whoops. Okay. Now my operators aren't that good.
Mhm.
Uh yeah, she's right. I'm not saying I'm good with her, but
You
man,
just like her.
when you could like, I love disruptors,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, what was your plan? Yeah, none of that is happening anymore.
Hmm.
So she is sitting at my number 3, but I mean, I agree with you, uh, in the sense that, yeah, if you're not utilizing her, then she's dead weight.
She's one of those that I am perfectly willing to admit I probably just suck at her. And
Yeah, and that's fine. You don't want
that's
a game like
yeah.
this where you're good with everyone.
Yeah,
You need place. That's what makes these games fun.
exactly.
Okay,
So
we
yeah,
got two
I
people.
don't view her as a bad operator. I view me being bad at playing her.
We got 2 people left. Who do you think
Mhm.
is my number 2?
Iana.
That is correct. Iana is where the hell is she? Iana is my number 2.
It's a fascinating number 2.
One, I just think she's super cool in
Yeah.
terms of like her gear and stuff. All of them reactions. She basically has a Nokk. She has a IQ.
Yep.
She has the longevity.
She has a good gun.
She
She
has
has
good
sprint.
guns. She has sprint. Her health is low, but with her reaction, um, she the low health makes sense. If it was 5 or 6, that 6 wouldn't make sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, she has 3 uses. So you're not getting these all the time, but she has an answer for literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like, okay, well, you have a highly aggressive defensive squad, then I'm using these 3 reactions every time you're attacking me.
Yep.
And if you want to bypass that, then you have to, that's all you're doing is shooting.
Yeah. I think the thing with her is that's just tricky is, I mean, you've got 3 of them. So once they're all
Mhm.
gone, luckily she has a good gun to make up for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yeah. And I played Iana in the video game. She's an information
yeah.
operator, which unfortunately you don't necessarily get in the board game. Well, you still do as an attacker, but the fact that, okay, well, I don't have Nokk I didn't pick Nokk on my squad. Well,
Hmm.
okay, I'll pick her. And I'll have her never get pinged. I'll use that every time it's coming my way. You are correct. If you run out of those 3, I feel like if you run out of those 3, then you probably played her badly. Not you specifically, but like
Yeah.
at least if you're rushing through them,
Or you
like
played her really well.
that's what. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if you use her again as a heavy support character, but she can also hold her own. Unlike
Yeah.
some of the other support characters where it's like, well, I don't really do anything but provide, like Montagne. Oh, I just provide shield, but I'm not really, that's all I'm offering. She's probably the more complex operators, which makes sense because she's very complex in the video game.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah,
man,
she's one that's interesting because this is just nothing like the way she plays in the video game, but like I don't even know how you would do what she does in the video game and the board game. So
I feel like they got the theme behind her though,
yeah.
which is good enough.
Yeah, I think so.
If you can at least be like, okay, thematically, like you shot at her, but it was the hologram.
Yeah.
That's like the extra, not extra die. It's like, yeah, to me it kind of makes sense, but yeah, I don't know how you would have done it one for one.
Hmm.
Um, Versatility alone, she's S tier.
Yeah. She's like Nokk. She's a good infiltrator, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. So
Mm-hmm. I mean, where do we have? We have IQ in, um, we have IQ in A. We have Nokk in
I think
A.
you put her in A. So
Yep.
she's right around there.
And what else did Iana have? Oh, and then being able to ignore damage, which I think is the only attacker that does that.
I
Or
think so,
removing a
yeah.
die, sorry.
Vigil does that, but he's on defense.
He's on
So
defense. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, like I get over there. I just like that
Oh, okay.
that sheer versatility, being
Yeah.
having an answer for literally everything. So, and
She's a
because
good
you're
wild card.
exactly because you also have because they're all reactions, your opponent can't necessarily predict how you're going to use the user.
Yep.
So, where do you have her for you? C?
So no, actually, I put her in the B tier
Okay,
with right alongside IQ for pretty much for the same reason. I
gotcha.
think she's just a solid like my B tier is just solid picks like
Yeah.
always pretty good. She's another one that I've actually only played maybe once or twice, but she's good.
Okay.
I think the reason I put her there is I think of her as an infiltrator wild card kind of character,
Mm-hmm.
and if I were to have a choice, I would usually go with Nokk, even though she technically has more abilities than Nokk
Mm-hmm.
does.
You have the
Um,
consistency of
yeah,
knock.
Nokk is consistent. I think
Yeah,
that's the reason. So, but if they ban Nokk, Yana is the perfect
that's
replacement.
true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, technically all the S tiers could be shit because they're never picked because you can't
yeah,
pick them. And well, we have one left. So my number 1 is Finka,
I think.
another support character.
Mhm.
Um, which is so weird because growing up, I was always like, I want to be DPS. When I'm playing Overwatch, like my main is Junkrat, which is DPS, but like
Yeah.
Overwatch is what turned me into like I really like support because I kind of like that narcissistic viewpoint where it's like, yeah, I got all the kills. I kept you alive, you
Yeah, you wouldn't have
fucker.
gotten all the kills if I didn't
Yeah,
keep you
if I
alive.
wasn't here. So really, I'm the hero.
Yeah.
Um, and then Overwatch, if I'm like, I got gold damage and I'm support, you guys suck.
Yeah.
Finka, the only healer on attack. Defense has a bunch of them, not a bunch, but clearly they have ways to heal. Um, in a game, as we talked about many times, where every damage counts, and you have ways to remove 3 damage
Hmm.
and ways of preventing one of your operators from being killed. I mean, that's just as clutch as you can get.
Yeah. No, she um
And 5 health, like
yeah.
being a healer, if she had like 4, which would make sense, but having 5 health is good, and no yellow, like her
Mhm.
gun, is also good. Uh, yeah, like you can be way like super aggressive
Yeah, you can
with.
be aggressive. Here's the thing with her. I think so. I put her in in my situational tier in the C tier. Um, she is kind of like I mean she's the doc of the attacking team, right?
Yeah.
And she's a little bit better than Doc in that her heal ability is wave, whereas his is specifically line of sight. But both abilities, in my opinion, are a little high maintenance. Because they're those kinds of operators that I'll pick them and think, cool, they'll heal my operators when they die. I'm just anytime an operator dies, it's always just not in line of sight of Doc, or just not,
Yeah.
just 5 spaces away from Finka. And so Finka, I think, is one of those kind of like Nomad that you build around, and
Yeah.
you have like a core squad that's like all together around
hmm
her as they push. Like maybe you bring her with Monty,
Yeah.
and Blitz, and you have that little shield core that kind
hmm
of like sneaks
You
through.
yeah. You can just play her in like a highly aggressive where it's
Yeah,
like, I mean, playing her with a Sledge where it's like, oh yeah, now he's gonna be, you know, wreaking havoc, and oh, you thought you were gonna trade with
yeah,
him. He popped out, killed your guy. Now you're gonna swarm him. Oh, yep, boom, like keeping him
yeah.
alive. Now they do receive a stun, but
Hmm.
I don't really view that as that bad because what you probably could do is you keep her in that wave to keep them alive, and when it's your turn, you get them
Yep.
out of the way so that the stun goes away, and then you heal them again.
Yeah, and even if even if the other person can shoot them again with another operator, they're wasting actions
Yeah.
on killing this operator, which
Yep.
is a fine use of her. You
hmm
know.
Yeah. So yeah, she
Uh,
was she
yeah.
was pretty much a surefire number 1 for
Oh yeah.
just my play
She's
style.
she's like Doc, and I think about them in the same way.
hmm
When they do their thing, they're incredible. So when I was playing a game the other day that came down to the wire, and I had a small chance of being able to get in and defuse the bomb, and I was like, cool, if I just kill this one person, I'll be able to get in and defuse the bomb, and forgot that they had Doc.
Oh
So I killed
yeah.
the person and was like, oh, thank goodness, I finally am able to get in and defuse the bomb. And the guy was like, okay, I keep them alive with Doc. And I was like, oh, and so I
Oh
lost.
no, yeah.
Yeah, so they're really good. Like on those
hmm
moments in the game where you need everyone alive. Yeah.
when you need everyone alive, a lot of ping dot damage. It's just like
Hmm.
it's like okay, well now I'm gonna heal. Yeah, only 2 uses, but any semblance of healing sucks because it feels like now you're playing catch up.
Yeah.
It's like I spent a lot of my turn dealing damage to you, and you just wiped it all with what's the one thing of your turn that was super easy to do.
Yep.
And now I have to rework all of that. And now you have info. You've positioned in a difference where all that dot damage I was doing,
Hmm.
I can't do anymore.
I will say, actually, I may switch. I also may move her up into B because another great use for her is to counter the Trapper team comp from the defensive side. The ones that, and every time you do anything, oh, you take 2 damage or you lose an action, you can soak up damage and then heal them with Finka. That's something that's been used against
Oh
me.
yeah.
I'll pair up a bunch of traps and then I'll spend a bunch of them to try and kill someone, but then Finka will heal them. And you're like, oh man, I used all these cubes in my traps. So
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, because
yeah.
a lot of people have certain charges. Yep,
Hmm.
that's a good point. So that is it, everyone. That took as long as I expected it to.
Yeah.
But there should be I'll put in the tab so you can just hear what we say about each operator. Um this has been a blast. What major changes would you have? Because I feel like, how do you feel that we did in terms of compromising in such a sense? Now, granted, this was me on attack because I prefer
That's true.
attacking and you prefer defending. So we'll defer to you on the defense video. So everyone go check out our defense video.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds like we only had like a few hard, like,
Yeah,
this is
there were only a
like,
couple times where we blatantly, I think, were on the opposite ends. But I think I kind of, on mine, I kind of just tried to, I split everything. Mine's a little bit more of an even split amongst all 5 categories.
okay.
And even then, what's really funny is I don't even know if I could say any major changes because I'm looking at all of them. And again, the weird thing about this game is that like any one of them are like, oh, it could go here, it could go up, it could go down. Like I could think of a million scenarios where this would be really good or it wouldn't be as good. So it's kind of, that's why it's kind of weird. Like it's a fun mental exercise, but like, yeah, I don't know about Hibana being like, this implies on yours. I think that's the only thing is this implies that Hibana is like the weakest blatantly and is bad, but she's not. She's not. Like
I'm still gonna stand by this. I mean, just to make us all feel better. There we go.
You can put her in C at least.
Yeah.
Like that just
it's so interesting because I did not expect it to be even on S's and A's, and you know, I the bell curve. You expected, D, C, and all that, but that's what's great. That's why I kind of preferred ranking because it like feels a little bit better. You have more of like a why is it all the way down at 30 versus number 1.
Yeah.
But this is a more true aspect of the game where it's like everyone is used, even though Hibana is the only one in C.
Yeah.
To me, I think she fits there because there are other people that do what she does, just more. But again, that's also for players that are like, well, that's just more. You talked about kind of like, this is kind of a headache to think about.
Yeah.
Like Hibana's just has a simple, straightforward ability.
I mean, if you want, I can send you, after this is done, I can send you my list and you can throw it up on the screen here just to see, you compare the two. Because we did end up with different lists. I mean, mine is actually a pretty even split amongst the 3. The only 3 I put in the bottom tier were Fuze, Capitao, and Twitch. And that's just my tier where I just rarely play them, but not because they're bad.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll take the screen cap of that and then I'll put it up so people can see it at the end of the final list. But that is it, everyone. That is everything for our attacking tier list. So I hope you enjoyed. Go watch our defender operator video to learn about the defenders and how we feel about them. Let us know what operators are your favorite and least favorite in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. And go check out 115 Gaming.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.